Chapter 742. Wang Daoyuan flew all the way to the north, and his doppelganger in the space was not idle either. Previously, he had killed a peak golden core cultivator and Reverend Goldenlight. Their universe rings were kept in the space of the Spirit Pearl. In the ring of the peak golden core cultivator, he found a token of the Divine Pill sect. He should be a disciple of the Divine Pill sect of the Seven Stars Alliance. There were also some spiritual herbs in the universe ring. Among them, there were 3 stalks of core fragmentation grass, 2 stalks of rejuvenation grass, and a spirit condensation fruit. The spirit condensation fruit was an auxiliary ingredient of the nascent cultivating pill. The fruit was already ripe, and there was a seed in it. It could be planted in the space of the Spirit Pearl. The other elixirs, Dharma artifacts, and the like were all of the 4th grade. Wang Daoyuan had already broken through to the Yuanying realm. These things were of no use to him, so he threw them in the hut. There were still some good things in Reverend Goldenlight's universe ring. The mirror that could emit golden light was not bad, but it was a natal Dharma artifact. After the death of its owner, its power would be greatly reduced. It was also an unorthodox Dharma artifact. There was no need to refine it into a legendary Dharma artifact. However, it was still a 5th grade Dharma artifact, and its material was not bad. He could keep it and use it as a dressing mirror for Zhou in the future. Reverend Goldenlight had robbed many golden core cultivators, and there were still a few 4th grade Dharma artifacts in the universe ring. When Wang Daoyuan encountered him, the flying boat was broken. The core of the flying boat and the spiritual power conversion device were also kept by him. If he sold this item, he could earn nearly 10 million spirit stones. Now that he had taken it back, his doppelganger could refine a new flying boat. It could save a lot of effort. He only needed to refine the outer shell. There were no other 5th grade Dharma artifacts in the universe ring. If there were, he would not have robbed golden core cultivators. There were also some 5th grade elixirs, all of which were auxiliary ingredients of the nascent cultivating pill. The most valuable item was a 6th grade refining material, dazzling sun gold. It was a refining material produced by the Golden Sun Mountain. It was a metal material, but it contained an extremely rich yang qi. When refining a Dharma artifact, it could be added, giving the Dharma artifact a rich yang qi. It was extremely lethal to evil and demonic cultivators. In addition, there was also a jade pill bottle with 3 nascent cultivating pills inside. Wang Daoyuan could not use it for the time being. The 5 spirits Immortal art did not have a cultivation technique for the Yuanying period, so he could not increase his cultivation level. Once he was done with the 7-star mystic realm, he would need to find a secluded place. Combining the techniques he had obtained before, he deduced the Yuanying technique of the 5 spirits Immortal transformation technique. Without 8 to 10 years of time, this matter wouldn't be able to cause much of a stir. Right now, he had to do his best to search for some tier 5 spirit herbs. The more he gathered, the fewer things he would need to gather to enter the 7 stars heavenly palace. Thus, they wouldn't need to take too many risks to reduce the risk of being discovered. After reaching the Yuanying stage, the amount of spiritual energy in one's body would greatly increase. Flying over 20,000 miles in one go was not a big deal. In merely 3 hours, they arrived at Qingmang Mountain. This mountain range was not small. It was more than 6,000 miles long from east to west, and more than 2,000 miles wide from north to south. Unfortunately, Wang Daoyuan had delayed for more than 10 days in order to break through to the Yuanying stage. Those golden core cultivators did not dare to enter the 7 stars heavenly palace, nor did they dare to compete with the Yuanying cultivators on the tier 6 spirit vein. They could only set their eyes on the tier 5 spirit vein. There were even more cultivators near a wood spirit vein like Qingmang Mountain, which was lush with vegetation and many spirit herbs. These people were really poor. He searched for a long time, but there was not a single Tier 4 spirit herb left on the entire Qingmong Mountain. Helpless, he could only leave Qingmong Mountain and search elsewhere. Then, he found another rank 6 spirit vein and plundered it clean. There was no point in searching for other spirit veins. He simply found a Tier 5 spirit vein at the edge of the area and repaired his natal Dharma artifact. Previously, when he was transcending the tribulation, the demon-vanquishing seal was scattered by the last strike of the tribulation. Every Dharma artifact suffered different degrees of damage. If he did not repair it, his combat power would be affected. As for upgrading them to Tier 5, it was not possible in a short period of time. Even if the spirit energy contained in the Dharma artifact reached the level of Tier 5, the tool pattern was still at Tier 4. Perfected Demon Vanquishing Master was only a peak golden core cultivator in his later years. In the refinement method of the 5 elements Demon Vanquishing Seal, there was only a Tier 4 tool pattern. If he wanted to upgrade his natal Dharma artifact to Tier 5, he would have to deduce the tool pattern himself. Breaking through to the Yuanying stage left a lot to do. He could not continue to improve his cultivation, and his physical body in Yuanying had reached a saturated state. The only thing he could do now was to repair the original tool pattern, which could more or less increase his combat power. Over the years, his natal Dharma artifact had absorbed a large amount of spirit energy and was extremely strong. Although the heavenly tribulation had scattered the 5 elements Demon Vanquishing Seal, it did not cause too much damage. He released his clone to stand guard outside while Yuanying entered the space of the Spirit Pearl to repair the Dharma artifacts. Yuanying cultivators' souls, spirit energy, and blood were fused as one and could leave their bodies for a longer period of time. With the help of the 60 times faster flow of time in the space of the Spirit Pearl, the speed of deduction of cultivation techniques, alchemy, and weapon refinement would be greatly increased. It was a pity that Yuanying could not be cultivated outside the body. Otherwise, if Yuanying cultivated in the space of the Spirit Pearl, he would be able to cultivate to the peak of Yuanying within 10 years. There were still more than 10 days before the mystic realm closed. If he left a few days to explore the 7 Stars Heavenly Palace, he would still have 10 days left. That would be more than 600 days in the space of the Spirit Pearl. Yuanying was in the thatched hut in the space of the Spirit Pearl, repairing the tool patterns on the 5 Dharma artifacts. 10 days passed quickly and the damaged Dharma artifacts were all repaired. There were less than 5 days before the mystic realm closed. It was time to explore the 7 Stars Heavenly Palace. After taking back the core of the flying boat and the spirit energy conversion device from perfected golden light, his clones refined a Tier 4 medium-grade flying boat. Wang Daoyuan rode the flying boat and flew towards the 7 Stars Heavenly Palace. When he was about 10,000 miles east of the palace, he kept the flying boat, hid his body, and slowly approached the palace. 2 hours later, he arrived near the 7 Stars Heavenly Palace. The 7 Stars Heavenly Palace was about 200 square miles. It was surrounded by a wall that was more than 30 meters high. There was a gate on all 4 sides of the palace. According to the beast skin book given by Uncle Zhong, the palace was protected by an array formation. Except for the first few times, every time the mystic realm opened, the array formation of the entire palace would be broken. The next time the mystic realm opened, the array formation would automatically repair itself. There was another important task for the late Yuanying cultivators sent in by the big sects, which was to break the array formation. Now, the defensive array of the palace had already been broken. However, there seemed to be a forbidden space array inside that prevented people from flying over. At every gate of the palace, there were Yuanying cultivators sent by the big sects to guard it. Wang Daoyuan did not want to provoke them. Even if he did not go through the gate, he could still go through the palace walls. The forbidden space array not only made all flying spells ineffective, it also had the effect of increasing gravity. Normal cultivators would not be able to go up the walls within the range of the forbidden space array. Even if they went up, they would cause quite a commotion and would easily alert the cultivators on guard duty. Wang Daoyuan was a body-tempering cultivator who had reached the Yuanying realm. How could he be stopped by a palace wall? He came to a place about 30 kilometers south of the east gate and jumped onto the palace wall. Looking up from the palace wall, he saw that the array formation inside the palace had not been completely broken. There was a small group of palaces in the middle that was protected by a defensive light shield. The defensive light shield was extremely strong and far exceeded the strength of the Yuanying cultivators. This should be the school of the Emperor Star. It was the only place in the Seven Stars Heavenly Palace that had not been explored. The soul formation cultivators sent by the big sects could not break through the school of the Emperor Star's defensive array. Now, the cultivators of the big sects did not see the school of the Emperor Star and pretended that it did not exist. Many of the surrounding buildings also had intact formations. They were probably empty buildings that the big sects had taken away. There was no longer any value in continuing to explore. The beast skin book that Uncle Zhong had given him did not describe the situation inside the palace in detail. After entering the palace, there was nothing to refer to. After going down the palace wall, Wang Daoyuan walked straight to the places without the protection of the array formation. The only valuable things in the heavenly palace were the spiritual fields. The places without the protection of the array formation had probably been broken by the cultivators of the big sections. These places were very likely to have spirit fields. The surrounding palaces were magnificent. They did not look like places where cultivators lived. Instead, they looked more like the imperial palaces of the mortal world. After passing through a few small palaces protected by arrays, a small river appeared in front of him. The river water was so clear that he could see the bottom. It contained extremely rich spiritual power that had surpassed level 5. The river water was still flowing. After passing through a winding river, it finally flowed to the north of the palaces. Previously, he had seen a small lake with a diameter of about 5 kilometers in the north of the palaces. There were many spirit plants planted around the lake. It was a good opportunity to explore. Following the river, he walked downstream and soon arrived at the lakeside. At the place where the river flowed into the lake, there was a stone tablet with the words Xuanhua Lake written in ancient characters. The shape of the lake was roughly circular. In the center of the lake was a small island with a diameter of about 2,000 feet. This island looked like a huge turtle. On the turtle's back was a small piece of spirit field. There were many level 5 high-grade spirit plants planted in this spirit field. 2 days ago, there was a late-stage Yuanying cultivator meditating next to it. If he wanted to pick spirit plants right under his nose, he would definitely be discovered. With his current strength, he was not a match for a late-stage Yuanying cultivator. He could only search for the spirit plants he needed in the spirit field by the lake. Even though the lake was only about 5 kilometers away from the center, he still had to be careful. Wang Daoyuan did not dare to release his divine sense. He only used his eyes to identify the spirit plants. After spending half a day, he finally walked around the small lake. There was a rich variety of spirit plants in these spirit fields. They were all level 5 spirit plants. He wanted nothing more than to put all of these spirit plants into the space of the spirit pearl. However, he did not dare to go too far in front of a late-stage Yuanying cultivator. He did not dare to touch many of the spirit plants whose uses he did not know. He only tried his best to find the raw materials for the 9 Deaths Soul Return Pill and the Nascent Cultivating Pill. However, his harvest was not small. He had collected most of the spirit plants for the 9 Deaths Soul Return Pill and the Nascent Cultivating Pill. The 2 pills each lacked a main ingredient. The 9 Deaths Soul Return Pill still lacked the Soul Return Grass and the Nascent Cultivating Pill still lacked the Jade Dew Flower. There was no such thing in the spirit field by the lake. Wang Daoyuan did not stay here any longer. He followed the river upstream and went to other palaces that might have spirit fields to look for the whereabouts of the pills. Half a day later, he arrived at the side of a courtyard. In the north of the courtyard, there was a palace-like building that was not very tall. On the plaque on the door of the hall, there were 3 big words, Shenong Pavilion. Voices came from the palace. A young cultivator asked, "Senior Marshal Brother Zhang, this divine farmer pavilion was the place where the inheritance of the spirit plant farmer was placed. Legend has it that the first group of cultivators who entered this place found a rank 7 spirit plant here. There is also the inheritance of a rank 7 spirit plant farmer in the palace. I wonder whose hands these things fell into." Then, a middle-aged man's voice came out, "There is indeed such a thing. In the past, more than 10 deity transformation cultivators of the Qixing-Si Xiuxian community broke the defensive formation of the Heavenly Palace. After that, they all dispersed. At that time, the first person to come to this divine farmer pavilion was the sect master of the Imperial Regency. He broke the formation of the divine farmer pavilion. At that time, there was a soul cultivation wood that had grown for an unknown number of years in the courtyard. This soul cultivation wood could not only heal the damage to the soul of cultivators, but also gradually strengthen the cultivation of the divine sense when wearing magic tools refined from the soul cultivation wood. At that time, the Imperial Regency was only a second-rate force in the Qixing-Si Xiuxian community. Moreover, it was the kind that was not very eye-catching. After obtaining this soul cultivation wood, it only took 2,000 years to grow into a first-rate force. Hearing this, Wang Daoyuan was also very interested. He had naturally heard of the famous soul cultivation wood. Its effect was just as the middle-aged cultivator said. The Imperial Regency had obtained the soul cultivation wood in the Thousand Corpse Spiritual Master's Sea observation record. Although his status was low at that time, he was still a disciple of the Imperial Regency. He still knew a little about the glorious history of his sect. The earliest core inheritance of the Imperial Regency was beast taming. In order to make spirit beasts submit, the requirements for the power of the divine sense were extremely high. After the Imperial Regency obtained the soul cultivation wood, the divine sense of the disciples naturally improved by leaps and bounds. The stronger the divine sense, the stronger the spirit beasts that could be controlled. The Imperial Regency rose because of this. Later, they obtained the soul-devouring soul cultivation technique and improved the doppelganger soul cultivation technique. Together with the soul cultivation wood, the Imperial Regency dominated the Qixing-Si Xiuxian community for tens of thousands of years. After the major forces of the Seven Stars Alliance destroyed the Imperial Regency, they did not find any trace of the soul cultivation wood. Now, there were different opinions as to where the soul cultivation wood was. Some said that some of the cultivators who participated in the siege took the soul cultivation wood for themselves. Some said that the cultivators of the Imperial Regency had already moved the soul cultivation wood to the secret realm. The lower part of the soul cultivation wood became an unsolved case. Wang Daoyuan carefully walked into the courtyard and observed the spiritual field in the courtyard. This was indeed the Shenong Pavilion. There were many types of spiritual herbs. The resurrection grass and dew flower that he was looking for were all in the spiritual field. The 2 cultivators in the hall were both in the early stage of the Yuanying realm. Wang Daoyuan was still confident that he could hide it from them, so he became bolder. He walked to the side of the spiritual field, picked a few resurrection grass and dew flowers, and kept them in the space of the spiritual pearl. With these 2 spiritual herbs, the trip to the 7 Stars Heavenly Palace could be considered complete. There were other level 5 spiritual herbs in the spiritual field, so naturally, he could not let them go. At this moment, a loud shout suddenly came from the house. The spiritual field of the Shenong Pavilion is guarded by the Divine Pills sect. Which sect's Daoyu is so unruly to come here and steal spiritual herbs? Hearing this, Wang Daoyuan was a little shocked. He had been hiding and did not make any big movements. How could he be discovered? The young man asked, "Senior Marshal brother, there is no one outside. Did you feel wrong?" The middle-aged man replied, "My divine sense is related to space. Just now, I clearly felt that there were spatial fluctuations in the courtyard. Someone must have stolen the spiritual herbs and kept them in the space treasure." Chapter 743. Needless to say, Yuanian cultivators had good memory. They soon found that a few resurrection grasses and jade dew flowers were missing. The young cultivator said, "Senior Marshal brother's magical power is really powerful. Someone did steal the spiritual herbs. Dao Yu in the courtyard, you've been discovered. You'd better show yourself quickly. It's not a big deal. Dao Yu didn't need to pick these unripe spiritual herbs. Just leave them behind. If you make a big deal out of it, it will affect the relationship between the two sides." Wang Daoyuan naturally didn't dare to show himself. He didn't care about the two's shouting and quietly left the Shenong pavilion. Although their whereabouts were discovered, the two thought that it was done by cultivators from other big powers. They wanted to escape from the heavenly palace now and find a place to hide. Maybe they could escape this disaster. The two shouted a few times but didn't see anyone show up. They were a bit annoyed. The young cultivator said, "Senior Marshal brother, this person is very good at hiding. It seems that he doesn't want to show himself. Let's report to Marshal Uncle. If the spiritual herbs are found missing, the two of us will be punished." The middle-aged cultivator nodded and immediately sent a message to the Dao Protector to report the situation. At this time, the late Yuanian cultivator guarding the island in the center of Xuanwu Lake opened his eyes. He said to himself, "Which powers Junior is so ignorant to steal the spiritual herbs of our divine pill sect?" Then, he used his divine sense to scan the spiritual fields on the shore. He was immediately furious. This thief is so arrogant. He dared to steal the spiritual herbs under my nose. He's obviously looking down on me. This is intolerable. We must investigate this thoroughly and catch him. Then, he transmitted his voice to the other cultivators. After Wang Daoyuan left the Shenong pavilion, he fled toward the eastern palace wall. By the time he reached the palace walls, several strands of divine sense swept towards him. However, with black magic robe, he didn't expose his whereabouts. There was also a defensive formation on the wall. This formation wasn't difficult to break, but it could still block him for a few breaths. For the Yuanian cultivators, this was enough time to attack many times. In just a short while, the number of people on the city wall had increased by several times. With his current strength, it was unrealistic for him to escape from several Yuanian cultivators at the same time. If the late-stage Yuanian cultivators from the Heavenly Palace were to catch up to them, they would have no choice but to surrender. Once caught, it would be a fate worse than death. Moreover, these cultivators were not sure who had stolen the spirit plants. There were cultivators from the Seven Stars Alliance, Blood Shark, and Mystic Ice Island in the Heaven Palace. He had fallen into the hands of the Divine Pill sect, and the first person to be suspicious of the Seven Stars Alliance was none other than the Blood Shark. There would definitely be a quarrel between the two sides. Both sides had a blood feud. If things got out of hand, they might even end up fighting. That would be the best time to slip away. There were only 3 days left before the secret realm closed. First, he had to find a place to hide. After 3 days, he would be randomly teleported out. As long as he was not too unlucky, he would be directly teleported into the midst of the Seven Stars Alliance. After making up his mind, Wang Daoyuan used the concealment devil art to suppress his aura. He came to a secluded place and sat down cross-legged. There were formations under the ground of the Seven Stars Heavenly Palace, so he could not escape through the earth. At this time, several late-stage Yuanian cultivators gathered at the Shenong Pavilion. They checked the spirit fields. The traces of Wang Daoyuan picking the spirit plants were still clearly visible. An extremely muscular cultivator said, "Indeed, there are traces of freshly picked spirit plants." An old cultivator said, "It's not just the Shenong Pavilion. There are also many spirit plants around the Xuanwu Lake that I'm guarding. Which fellow Daoist did my divine pill sect offend? Who Daoist dares to humiliate me like this?" A cultivator wearing a white robe with a golden longsword embroidered on it said, "The various factions have already divided their territories. The mature spirit plants are almost all picked. What's the use of picking these immature spirit plants? Could it be that they have a habit of stealing and are itching to steal?" When he said, "steal," he purposely emphasized his tone and looked at the other cultivators. Those cultivators were Blood Shark's people. What he meant was that Blood Shark's people stole the spirit plants and provoked the Divine Pill sect. This person was a cultivator from the Alioth Sword sect. It was the Alioth Sword sect that led the destruction of the Imperial Regency. The upper echelons of Blood Shark were all cultivators of the Imperial Regency. They already had a blood feud with the Seven Stars Alliance. How could they be willing to accept this? An old cultivator laughed, "That's true. Some people have a habit of stealing and are itching to steal. A few thousand years ago, they stole our Imperial Regency's territory. Maybe it's because the things they stole were big enough that they didn't itch after thousands of years. Now their old habits are acting up again. They want to steal something again. Looks like they have their eyes on the Seven Stars Heavenly Palace. After taking down the Seven Stars Heavenly Palace, the next step is to take the entire Seven Stars Mystery Realm for themselves." Sword cultivators were mostly straightforward. How could they withstand this provocation? The Alioth Sword sect cultivator was so angry that his face turned red, **T. Back then, the Imperial Regency bullied the cultivators of the Sea of Seven Stars. They even used sorcery to control other cultivators and turned them into puppets, causing the heavens to be angry. My Alioth Sword sect followed the will of the people and carried out justice on behalf of the heavens. We destroyed the Imperial Regency. Back then, the various forces attacked openly. When did they steal? The Blood Shark cultivator had a mocking expression, "Dao Yu, why are you in such a hurry? Did you hit a sore spot?" The Alioth Sword sect cultivator took out his natal magic weapon and scolded, "You've gone too far. Today, I will fight you to the death." The Blood Shark cultivator was not to be outdone. "If your Alioth Sword sect doesn't play dirty, who can you beat? Rogue cultivators of the same level can beat you up." Saying this, he also took out his magic weapon and prepared to attack. Seeing that things were about to get out of hand, the other Seven Stars Alliance cultivators quickly stopped them. The bulky cultivator stood between the two. Both sides have already agreed to let go of past grudges in the Heavenly Palace. Let's not talk about the past. Let's investigate the disciples of the various forces and clarify this matter. If this stalemate continues, when the secret realm closes, there will be no clues. In the future, both sides will blame each other and it might lead to chaos. Hearing this, the Alioth Sword sect and Blood Shark cultivators calmed down. The two sides had fought many times in the past thousands of years. Each time, blood flowed like a river. Now, the demonic cultivators of the myriad demon islands had grown stronger. The cultivators of Mystic Ice Island also wanted to reach out to the Sea of Seven Stars. If this continued, the Seven Stars Alliance and Blood Shark would no longer be in charge of the Sea of Seven Stars. Seeing that his words were effective, the bulky cultivator struck while the iron was hot. "Let's find the person first. We'll talk about other things later." No one had any objections. An early nascent soul cultivator stood up and said, "Junior has a spirit beast and its innate ability is to detect scents. Since this person appeared here, he must have left some traces of his scent. When I release the spirit beast, he won't be able to hide." Saying this, he summoned a black dog from his spirit beast pouch. This black dog was only 3 feet long and had a cultivation level of low-grade 4th level. It sniffed hard in the spirit field, and a wave of spirit power appeared on its body. After about 10 breaths, the black dog sent a message to its master. The cultivator said, according to the scent, this person first appeared at the Jadewater River. Then, he followed the Jadewater River to Xuanwu Lake. He circled around Xuanwu Lake and left a lot of scent in the spirit field. Then, he came to the Shenong Pavilion. After leaving this place, he went east. He stopped near the east gate for a while and then restrained his scent, making it difficult to detect him. Moao can't lock onto him unless he's near him. The Wen clan cultivator said, according to the results of Moao's little friend's detection, this person hasn't left yet. How about this? Let's gather all the disciples in the heavenly palace and let Moao's little friend check them one by one. No one had any objections. They all sent messages to the cultivators of their respective sections. Chapter 744. These people were also very efficient, and the cultivators from various sects quickly gathered at the Shenong Pavilion. Although Wang Daoyuan did not dare to use his divine sense to investigate, he could see cultivators coming and going with his naked eye. In the Shenong Pavilion, Moao carefully sniffed the scent of each cultivator. He quickly sniffed everyone's scent and transmitted his voice to his master again. Moao cupped his hands at the few Yuanying cultivators and said, "Seniors, the person who stole the spiritual medicine is not here." The cultivator from the Alioth sword sect said, "In that case, let them patrol the Sky Palace first to prevent that thief from attacking again. Let's follow Moao's little friend and walk around the palace wall to prevent that person from mixing in with the cultivators on duty." No one had any objections. The cultivators at the peak of the Golden Core realm and the early stage of the Yuanying realm began to patrol around. The cultivators at the late stage of the Yuanying realm led Moao to the east gate. Wang Daoyuan's position was not far from the east palace wall. Soon, he saw a cultivator leading a black dog on the wall. Accompanied by a few old cultivators, they were sniffing the scent of the cultivators on duty. He knew that things were not good. Canine spirit beasts had a keen sense of smell, and they had probably smelled his scent. He was still too close to the palace wall. Although he had tried his best to conceal his scent, it was impossible to conceal it no matter what method he used. If he was discovered by the black dog, he would be in big trouble. He got up and walked to the west, trying to avoid this person. The best way to avoid being tracked by scent was to enter the water. If he stayed in the water, even if some of his scent was exposed, it would be diluted by the water. Humans could not conceal all scents, and spirit beasts could not smell all scents. As long as the scent was faint enough, it would not be a problem to hide from the black dog. He found a place by the Jade River where the water flow was faster and entered the water. In such a place, scents dissipated quickly, and the movement caused by entering the water was not obvious. Taking advantage of the fact that the patrollers were far away, he quickly entered the water and was not discovered. Foundation establishment cultivators could hide in the water for a few days, let alone Yuanying cultivators. As long as he was not discovered within 3 days, everything would be fine. Although the palace walls of the 7 Stars Heavenly Palace were especially long, there weren't many people, so they were quickly checked. The cultivator of the Divine Pill sect said angrily, "What the hell? All the cultivators in the Heavenly Palace have been checked, but there is still nothing. Could it be that someone left the 7 Stars Heavenly Palace and then quietly came back to pick spiritual herbs?" The Alioth sword sect cultivator frowned slightly. There's no point in stealing some immature spiritual herbs. There was no need to expend so much effort unless there was another purpose. Could it be that someone is deliberately instigating a war between the 7 Stars Alliance and Blood Shark so that they can benefit from it? After he finished speaking, he intentionally or unintentionally glanced at the Wen clan cultivators. The cultivator from the Wen family wasn't happy. True monarch lifeless, are you saying that the cultivators from Mystic Island are interfering? Why don't I summon all the cultivators from Mystic Island and let this mastiff smell them? My Wen family is the overlord of Mystic Island, and the previous family head did intend to reach into the Sea of Seven Stars. In these recent years, you all know about my Wen family, we won't be able to interfere with the affairs of the Sea of Seven Stars in the next 1 or 2,000 years. The muscular cultivator continued, the people we brought in didn't have any hidden powerful cultivators. I think it's most likely a rogue cultivator. After all of us have these spiritual herbs, there's no need to spend so much effort to steal them. If it's a rogue cultivator who didn't have much outside and wanted to take the risk, then it makes sense. In the last few days, our cultivators on guard were a bit lax, and he managed to sneak in. He saw that there were no mature spiritual herbs in the spiritual fields, so he picked some spiritual herb sprouts. The Wen family cultivator nodded. According to what the mastiff smelled, this person stood near the east gate for a while. At that time, we should have strengthened our defenses. There were no changes in the various formations, so this person shouldn't have escaped. Also, he shouldn't be too strong. Otherwise, he would have forced his way out. Since he's still in the heavenly palace and isn't strong, let's spread out and guard the entrances. No matter how good he is at hiding, he won't dare to move around in front of our people. Then, we'll take the mastiff and search bit by bit. We can't burrow into the ground in the heavenly palace, so no matter how strong he is, he can't hide forever. No one had any objections. The early-stage Yuanian cultivators and Golden Core cultivators spread out and set up surveillance formations on the various paths. The mid-stage Yuanian cultivators guarded the formations on the palace walls, while the late-stage Yuanian cultivators brought Mo Zhao and the mastiff to slowly search the entire heavenly palace. After a day, the entire heavenly palace was searched, but there was still nothing. Everyone started to mutter. The Wen family cultivator asked, "Little friend Mo Zhao, is there any limit to your spirit beast's ability to detect the opponent's aura?" Mo Zhao didn't hide anything. "Senior, the mastiff can't detect the aura in the water." Upon hearing this, the lifeless true lord quickly said, "That's right, this person must be hiding in the water. There are only a few spirit springs, a jade river, and a Xuanwu lake in the entire heavenly palace. The Xuanwu lake is connected to the outside world and is protected by a formation. There's no way out. There are still 2 days left. Let's search the Jade River." Time was tight, so everyone was very decisive. They sent people to set up formations on both sides of the Jade River. Then, starting from the Xuanwu Lake downstream, they continuously cast spells to attack the water. Wang Daoyuan also noticed the movements of these big forces. The Jade River was only about 100 miles long, so it wouldn't take long to search it. Instead of waiting for death here, it was better to take a gamble. He would find a place far away from the Xuanwu Lake and force his way through the city gate. With this idea in mind, he used the cloud escape and blended into the water, quickly swimming against the current. Soon, he arrived near the source of the Jade River, which was very close to the western palace wall. There was an early-stage Yuanian cultivator guarding the shore, and 2 mid-stage Yuanian cultivators on the palace wall, as well as a defensive formation. It would be very difficult to force his way out. However, there was no other way now. When the late-stage Yuanian cultivators came to investigate, it would be impossible to force his way out. He quietly went ashore near the source of the river, which was surrounded by warning formations. He didn't have time to care about these now, so he ran directly toward the western palace wall. The white tiger blade in his dantian was already filled with sword chi and sword intent. It was ready to attack at any time. After running a few steps, he entered the formation. The surrounding Yuanian cultivators were alarmed. A silver light slashed toward Wang Daoyuan. This was the attack of a late-stage Yuanying cultivator. It seemed that this group of people had been prepared. They had left a late-stage Yuanying cultivator here to ambush him. Wang Daoyuan didn't dare to take it head-on. He used the cloud escape and fled to the side. With the Black Devil's robe on him, the opponent couldn't lock onto him, so dodging wasn't a big problem. The attack didn't hit him, but it broke the surveillance formation on the riverbank. Taking advantage of the broken formation, Wang Daoyuan hurriedly fled in the southeast direction. The Seven Stars Heavenly Palace wasn't big, but it wasn't small either. There were also many defensive formations around the palace. These formations that were set up by the major factions couldn't cover the entire Heavenly Palace. There were bound to be many loopholes. As soon as his whereabouts were exposed, the cultivators on the other side of Xuanwu Lake didn't care about the fish and rushed over. The cultivators stationed in various places also began to gather in the direction he fled. Wang Daoyuan didn't dare to fight with the cultivators blocking his way. He could only constantly change directions to avoid detection. Suddenly, he felt something familiar and frightening in front of him. This feeling was very familiar. It was the same feeling he had in Beiyuan's demon-resisting mountain and the heaven-ending abyss. He had relied on this thing to successfully condense the Guiyuan sword intent. The thing stored in the Heavenly Palace should also be related to the Guiyuan sword intent. Regardless of whether it was a way out or not, even if he couldn't escape, he could use this power to resist for a while. The longer he delayed, the more hope he had. Soon, he arrived in front of a very tall and majestic hall. The words, Ziwei Hall, were written on the plaque in front of the hall. Chapter 745. Seeing these three words, Wang Daoyuan felt a chill in his heart. He originally thought that with this special feeling, there might be a way out. But now, it seemed like there was no hope. No one had been able to break through the Ziwei Palace for tens of thousands of years. With his strength, it was impossible to break through the formation. There was nowhere to run. This was the center of the entire palace. No matter where he ran, he would have to run 100 miles to reach the palace walls. Even if he couldn't fly, late-stage Yuanying cultivators could run faster than him. Moreover, there were many body-tempering cultivators in the Seven Stars Alliance. With a strong physical body, he could run faster. Sure enough, in less than 10 breaths of time, people gathered around. The black dog was also brought over. At such a close distance, his devil concealment art couldn't hide from late-stage Yuanying cultivators. At this time, running away was no longer realistic. Since there was something related to the Guiyuan sword intent in the palace, it might be able to resonate with his sword intent. He might as well use the resonance of his sword intent to have a good fight with them. Even if he couldn't win, it wasn't certain that he would die. As long as he released the spiritual pearl and entered the pearl space, there was still a way out. Back then, when he slashed out the heaven-destroying abyss, it only damaged the spiritual pearl and didn't destroy it. At most, the Sea of Seven Stars had soul formation cultivators. They couldn't do anything to the spiritual pearl. Moreover, apart from Wang Daoyuan himself, no one else could put it into the Sea of Consciousness. After the spiritual pearl recognized its master, it would crazily absorb spirit chi once it was outside the Sea of Consciousness. It was a hot potato for anyone who got it. The spirit chi in their own sect probably wasn't enough for the spiritual pearl to absorb. At most, they could use special methods to seal it somewhere. If that was the case, he might never be able to make a name for himself again. The grade of the spiritual vein in the spiritual pearl was limited by his cultivation. If he didn't go out, he wouldn't be able to break through to the soul formation realm, and the spiritual pearl wouldn't be able to advance. It could only exhaust its lifespan in the space and slowly die of old age. A few late-stage Yuanying cultivators appeared with the black dog about 1,000 feet in front of Wang Daoyuan. At this time, their spiritual consciousness could already see Wang Daoyuan. True Lord Wuxia of Alioth Sword Sect sneered, "So you're the one who's stirring up trouble. You're just an early Yuanying, yet you've made so many of us play with you for so long. You almost caused us to fight amongst ourselves. You won't be able to survive. Do you want to kill yourself, or do you want me to do it?" The white tiger blade had already been filled with spiritual energy and sword energy. Both of his hands were in a sword-holding position. The white tiger blade appeared in his hand, and the demon-slaying sword was instantly formed. At this moment, a shocking sword will also exploded from the school of the Emperor Star. The white tiger blade let out a soft humming sound. Wang Daoyuan only felt that the demon-slaying sword's power had skyrocketed. Suddenly, he waved the long sword in his hand and slashed at the lifeless Shinran. This sword was supported by the sword will of the school of the Emperor Star. The lifeless Shinran felt that this sword will was extremely sharp. Since he couldn't tell the depth of the attack, he didn't take it head-on. He was already prepared for this. With a burst of spiritual energy under his feet, he dodged the sword. The cultivators behind him weren't so lucky. They weren't mentally prepared, and their strength was much weaker. With one slash, an early Yuanying disciple of Alioth Sword Sect was cut in half. The Yuanying disciple wasn't spared either. He was cut in half along with his body. True Lord Wuxia was furious. "I didn't expect him to be a sword cultivator. Everyone, Daoyu, don't attack first. This person killed a disciple of my Alioth Sword Sect. I'll kill him myself." With that, a long sword that looked like a blood jade appeared in his hand. The sword emitted a strong murderous aura and the smell of blood. The Wen clan cultivator hurriedly tried to dissuade him. "Wuxia Daoyu, calm down. This person's sword will can resonate with the things in the school of the Emperor Star. We might be able to open the school of the Emperor Star's formation through him. We all know how many good things came out of the Seven Stars mystery realm back then. The school of the Emperor Star is the core of the Seven Stars heavenly palace. If we can enter, we'll get many benefits." Hearing this, the others were also a little tempted. The Divine Pill sect cultivator said, "Kid, you only took some spiritual herbs and killed a disciple of Alioth Sword Sect. We chased after you before because you almost caused us to fight. As long as you're willing to help us open the formation, we'll let you live." The treasures in the school of the Emperor Star were naturally coveted by everyone. Ever since the discovery of the Seven Stars mystery realm, the forces in the Sea of Seven Stars changed very frequently. Tens of thousands of years ago, the major forces that existed today were all unknown small forces. It was because they gained some benefits from the Seven Stars heavenly palace that they rose to power. For example, the Imperial Regency was able to rise from a second-rate force to dominating the Sea of Seven Stars for tens of thousands of years mainly because of the soul cultivation wood. Although the doppelganger soul cultivation technique also played a big part, without the soul cultivation wood, it would be difficult for it to grow. The lifeless Shinran naturally wanted the treasures in the school of the Emperor Star as well, especially after seeing that Wang Daoyuan's sword intent could resonate with the treasures in the school of the Emperor Star. This meant that there were treasures for sword cultivators in the school of the sword. If they could get it, Alioth Sword Sect would very likely surpass the other sects and become the overlord of the Sea of Seven Stars. Especially since one of their Yuanying cultivators had been killed, they could use this as an excuse to ask for more benefits. Thinking of this, he replied, "I can let him go, but the genius disciple of my Alioth Sword Sect can't die in vain." Hearing this, the late-stage Yuanying cultivator from Blood Shark looked disdainful. He couldn't even dodge an attack from a cultivator of the same level. At best, he was a mediocre person. In order to ask for a sky-high price, he had to say that he was a genius. However, he didn't expose him. Right now, everyone had common interests. If they fell out, they would lose everything. It wouldn't be good for anyone. The cultivator from Tianshu sect also said, since Alioth Sword sect has suffered a greater loss, you can take more of the benefits inside. Tianshu sect was also a high-ranking member of the Seven Stars Alliance. Back when they destroyed the Imperial Regency, they had also contributed greatly. They were also a powerful force that occupied one of the Seven Islands. Their status and strength were no weaker than Alioth Sword sect. The late-stage Yuanian cultivator from Tianji Palace also nodded, agreeing that Alioth Sword sect could take more of the benefits. These late-stage Yuanian cultivators all had their own selfish motives. If they could successfully enter the school of the Emperor Star and obtain a lot of benefits, their status would also rise when they returned to their respective sections. It wasn't impossible for them to obtain a chance to break through to the Soul Formation realm in the future. If they missed this opportunity, Soul Formation cultivators would probably come with them the next time the secret land opened. Even if they obtained benefits, it had nothing to do with them. In the Seven Stars Alliance, Alioth Sword sect, Tianshu sect, and Tianji Palace had the highest status. If Tianshu sect and Tianji sect agreed, no one else had the right to speak. True Lord Lifeless had achieved his goal, so he naturally had no objections. Since we have an agreement, let's let this kid go. Everyone looked at Wang Daoyuan, waiting for him to express his opinion. If there was a way out, Wang Daoyuan would naturally not reject it. If he helped to break the formation and use up the remaining 2 days, he could escape with his life. Even if he broke the formation in advance, no one would care about him anymore. They would all run in to snatch the benefits. Escaping into the space of the spiritual pearl was his last option. He could use it at any time, so he wasn't in a hurry. He cupped his hands and said, I can help, but you must promise to let me leave the Seven Stars Heavenly Palace after breaking the formation. As long as the formation was broken, an early-stage Yuanian cultivator couldn't do anything to him. Not to mention giving him a way out, they could even promise to let him be the sect leader of their sect. What else could he do if they went back on their word? The burly cultivator of Tianshu sect patted his chest and promised, little friend, don't worry. As long as you are willing to help us break the formation, you will be the guest elder of Tianshu sect. Whoever attacks you will be the enemy of the Tianshu sect. Alioth Sword sect, Tianji Palace, Blood Shark, and Wen clan cultivators all made promises. Wang Daoyuan cupped his hands and said, if that's the case, I will listen to your instructions. True Lord Lifeless smiled. Demon Sealing Perfected Lord, I will leave the matter of finding the formation's flaws to you. We only have 2 days, so we must solve the formation within 1 day. A late nascent soul stage cultivator wearing a Daoist robe with an 8 trigrams pattern walked up and smiled. This formation has been studied countless times by the seniors and has been thoroughly studied. It will definitely be completed within a day. As long as this kid can be of use, breaking the formation will not be a problem. With that, he took out a compass. Under his control, streaks of jade-white light flew out of the compass and merged with the formation's light barrier. An hour later, Demon Sealing Perfected Lord withdrew the light and began to analyze the formation with a few cultivators wearing the same clothes. Everyone waited on the side. Wang Daoyuan hoped that time would pass faster. After 2 days, he would have a chance to escape when he was teleported out. Unfortunately, no one was controlling the formation, and Demon Sealing Perfected Lord was too fast. It only took him 14 hours to analyze the array's weakness. The compass in Demon Sealing Perfected Lord's hand glowed brightly. A 3-inch wide 8 trigram pattern flew out and landed on the school of the Emperor Star's defensive light barrier. The barrier's spirit power kept flowing, and the 8 trigram pattern's position kept changing. Demon Sealing Perfected Lord smiled. I have already marked the formation's weak points. Now it's up to Dao Yu to make a move. Swordless Perfected Lord said bluntly, "Kid, use your sword intent to attack the 8 trigram pattern on the formation. Let us see if you are of any use. Don't slack off. You can only survive if you open the formation. If you are of no use, I will kill you to avenge the disciples of the sect." Wang Daoyuan didn't dare to be careless. If he wanted to survive, he had to make a move first. He took out the white tiger blade, formed the demon-slaying sword, and slashed at the 8 trigram pattern. The thing in the school of the Emperor Star resonated with the demon-slaying sword again. Several streaks of sword chi even flew out of the hall and attacked the defensive light barrier. At this time, the defensive light barrier's strength had decreased significantly and became much dimmer. The sword fell and the demon-slaying sword shattered. The defensive light barrier also trembled slightly. The late-stage Yuanian cultivators were overjoyed. Swordless Perfected Lord was overjoyed. When our soul formation ancestors attacked the formation's weak points, the effect was only so. A mere early-stage Yuanian cultivator can make such a big difference. Let's attack together. Maybe we can really break the formation. Everyone agreed and took out their life-bound Dharma artifacts. Even the early-stage Yuanian and peak-stage Golden Core cultivators attacked the defensive light barrier together. Wang Daoyuan was also forced to attack together. The defensive light barrier trembled more and more violently, and the spirit power inside decreased. Success was in sight. Everyone was greatly encouraged and attacked with all their might. More than 8 hours later, a crack sound was heard, and the defensive light barrier shattered with a loud rumble. A murderous aura surged out. Everyone felt as if they were facing a ferocious beast that could devour them at any time. Chapter 746. The inheritance of the 7 stars heavenly palace was not easy to obtain. Back then, when the ancestors of these forces broke through the 7 stars heavenly palace's array, there were many tricks up their sleeves. Now that the core of the Ziwei Palace was open, there would definitely be many tricks up their sleeves. None of the cultivators from the major forces dared to step forward. They all retreated. Wang Daoyuan was the opposite. Now that the array was open, these people were going to burn the bridge after crossing the river. If he retreated with them now, he would be courting death. It was better to continue forward. Even if he encountered any danger, it would be better than falling into the hands of these major forces. He used the concealment devil art and cloud escape to escape into the palace. The people outside the palace wanted to enter but did not dare to. When the other palaces were opened, many Yuanian cultivators died. It could be said that the gains of the various forces were made with the lives of their disciples. They did not expect that the Ziwei Palace, which had not been opened for tens of thousands of years, would suddenly open. They were not prepared at all. The Wen clan cultivator asked, "Daoyu, are we just going to watch?" That kid most likely obtained the core inheritance of the 7 stars heavenly palace. After entering the Ziwei Palace, I'm afraid he will soon finish plundering all the benefits. The Divine Pill sect cultivator laughed. Why don't Wen Daoyu go in first to explore? If there are benefits, he can get a bigger share. The sturdy cultivator from the Tianshu sect said, "We can't go on like this. True Lord Traversing Sea, didn't your blood shark boast of being a direct descendant of the Imperial Regency? Let some spiritual beasts in. We don't expect to get anything good, just explore the way." True Lord Traversing Sea glanced at him. "You want me to work for the Imperial Regency for free?" True Lord Lifeless continued, "You can get a bigger share too. The level of danger inside is not low. If we go in rashly, I'm afraid all of us will die." With this promise, True Lord Traversing Sea naturally did not refuse. He released a mid-grade 5th-level spiritual monkey. This spiritual monkey was only a foot tall. Its fur shone with golden light and its eyes were golden. There was a blood-red slit above its eyebrows. Seeing this, the sturdy cultivator from the Tianshu sect said, "This is a three-eyed golden monkey found in the Flying Ape Mountain in the secret realm. Tens of thousands of years have passed. I didn't think that you would be able to let them reproduce until now." This fellow's eyesight was extremely strong and could see through illusions. Its third eye was capable of using eye techniques to attack souls. With this, we don't have to worry about that rogue cultivator snatching everything away. True Lord Tyrannical C smiled without saying anything and released the three-eyed golden monkey. He was a direct descendant of the Imperial Regency back in the day. Naturally, he would use a split soul to tame his beast. This three-eyed golden monkey was his split soul. Under his control, the golden monkey entered the main hall. At this moment, Wang Daoyuan had already entered the hall. Seeing the situation in front of him, he was somewhat surprised. From the outside, the hall was only about 2 square miles wide. For a nascent soul cultivator, this distance was nothing at all. However, inside the main hall, it was extremely spacious. He had already walked more than 10 miles inside, but he still hadn't seen the back wall. The entire hall might have been constructed using the law of space. However, it shouldn't be considered a spatial artifact. Wang Daoyuan had a storage bag on his waist. If it was a spatial artifact, the storage bag would have exploded long ago. The things that flowed out of the 7 Stars Heavenly Palace had created many great forces. It went without saying how powerful the inheritance was. It wasn't strange that it could play with the law of space. It was hard to say how big the space inside the hall was. There was also a thick fog around, and his divine consciousness couldn't probe too far. Even if he used the heaven-peering secret technique, he could only see the situation within 200 feet. He could only follow his senses and find something that could resonate with his sword intent. He had the Guiyuan sword intent, which came from the same source as this thing. He shouldn't harm his own people. He continued to go deeper into the hall and soon saw a figure in the fog. Wang Daoyuan was shocked. Could there be someone alive here? There was a level 6 spirit vein here. If there was a living person, the highest cultivation level he could reach was the peak of soul formation. He was just a beginner in yuanying. He wouldn't even be able to withstand a slap. However, this figure didn't move. Wang Daoyuan wouldn't rush to court death. He carefully circled around from the side. When he was 100 feet away from the figure suddenly moved. It was just that his movements were extremely stiff. It wasn't difficult for him to bend his joints like a refined corpse, but his movements were very awkward. Moreover, with a slight movement, the joints made the sound of metal rubbing against each other. Wang Daoyuan could already see this person's appearance clearly. He had the appearance of a middle-aged man. His skin color was ordinary, but his face was dull. He shouldn't be a refined corpse. He also didn't feel the existence of vitality. He didn't dare to use his divine consciousness to explore the situation, lest he be discovered. The middle-aged man just glanced at where he was and ran in the direction of the hall door. With this run, his movements were even more obvious. The sound of metal rubbing against each other spread all over his body. There was no vitality and a body full of iron lumps. This was undoubtedly a puppet. This time, Wang Daoyuan was relieved. A puppet without anyone controlling it had extremely weak detection ability. He was wearing the black demon robe and also used the devil concealment art. The aura he leaked was almost negligible. This puppet shouldn't be able to discover him. Wang Daoyuan only knew that the refining method of puppets required materials like the yellow spring willow. However, puppets were also mentioned in some of the refining methods. After all, puppets were also within the scope of refining techniques. It was just that refining them was very difficult. There was no spiritual power fluctuation on this guy's body. Wang Daoyuan wasn't sure how strong he was. He wasn't sure whether he could stop the cultivators of the big forces behind him. Soon, there was a scream of a monkey behind him, as well as the sound of metal. It seemed that the puppet had the upper hand, so he didn't care about it. Following his senses, he continued to go deeper into the hall. After walking less than a mile, he encountered another puppet. Except for the difference in appearance, there was no difference. Wang Daoyuan carefully circled around, but after a few steps, the puppet moved again. This time, it didn't run outside. Instead, it jumped high and attacked him. Wang Daoyuan used the smoke escape to dodge. The puppet's speed wasn't fast, so he successfully dodged the attack. However, as soon as he stopped, the puppet rushed towards him at an extremely fast speed. The opponent's strength was unknown. Wang Daoyuan didn't dare to take it head-on. He used the smoke escape to dodge again. This time, he stopped on a pillar. The puppet didn't attack again. Wang Daoyuan was a little curious. The puppet's spiritual sense wasn't enough to discover him. In particular, after using the smoke escape, it condensed a large amount of black fog, and its ability to conceal spiritual sense was even stronger. However, the puppet could still attack him directly. This meant that the puppet didn't rely on spiritual sense to detect the enemy's whereabouts. If it didn't rely on spiritual sense, and the puppet didn't have sight, smell, and so on like a human, how did this guy find him? He carefully checked the ground. There were square tiles on the ground that were a foot long. They were refined with special materials that couldn't be penetrated by spiritual sense. Wang Daoyuan slowly slid down from the pillar. He lightly tapped the tiles with his foot. The puppet didn't attack. He slowly increased his strength. When his strength reached 15 kilograms, the puppet attacked. Sure enough, the puppet used the weight of the tiles to determine the enemy's position. As long as a tile reached 15 kilograms, the puppet would immediately attack. There was a space restriction array here, so the gravity was extremely strong. A sparrow thrown on the ground would weigh more than 15 kilograms. Wang Daoyuan's weight in this place was probably tens of thousands of kilograms. Stepping on the intersection of a few tiles didn't have any effect. He could only use the tactic of luring the tiger away from the mountain. He took out a piece of rotten wood from the spirit pearl space and threw it behind him. The rotten wood fell to the ground 3 miles away. The puppet attacked. Wang Daoyuan immediately jumped down from the pillar. Following the line of tiles, he used the smoke escape to run inside. He wanted to find the next pillar as soon as possible. The puppet crushed the rotten wood with its foot and continued to chase after Wang Daoyuan. However, its speed was still not fast enough. Before it arrived, Wang Daoyuan found the next pillar. Then, he used the same trick again. After running for more than 10 miles, the puppet finally stopped chasing. Chapter 747. As he went deeper and deeper, Wang Daoyuan's perception of the sword intent became stronger and stronger. Soon, another figure appeared in front of him. Wang Daoyuan felt his hair stand on end. These puppets were each harder to deal with than the last. Who knew what kind of trouble this third one would cause? Just as he was about to take a detour, the puppet moved. It held a long sword without any spiritual energy fluctuations. The long sword was wrapped in a layer of dust. When the puppet moved, the dust fell, and the sword shone with a cold light. Just as Wang Daoyuan was about to escape, the puppet rushed over with the sword. This guy's speed was extremely fast. Wang Daoyuan used the smoke escape and temporarily pulled away. Then, he took out the 5th-rank long sword and his sword intent erupted, clashing with the puppet. There was obviously no spiritual energy on the puppet's long sword, but there was sword intent, and it was the returning origin sword intent. When the sword slashed down, Wang Daoyuan was sent flying by the puppet's huge strength. Under this attack, Wang Daoyuan felt a faint pain in his internal organs. This strength was definitely at the late stage of yuanying. Fortunately, the long sword in his hand was hard and barely blocked the sword. However, there was a half-inch deep cut on the sword, and there was no need to repair it. He immediately took out the white tiger blade and continued to fight. But he didn't expect the refined corpse to return to its original position and stop attacking. Wang Daoyuan was a little confused. Could it be that it recognized the returning origin sword intent and treated him as one of its own? Since the puppet didn't attack, he wouldn't court death by provoking it. He bypassed the puppet and continued to walk toward his target. Soon, he came to a side wall. There was nothing on the wall, but Wang Daoyuan could clearly feel that there was something behind the wall that he desired and feared. He took out the white tiger blade and used the demon-slaying sword to slash at the wall. Before the sword landed, the wall trembled. A stone door opened automatically. Inside was a very small stone room, only 3 feet square. When the stone door opened, a strong murderous aura surged out, and a very weak sword chi slashed out. Wang Daoyuan's demon-slaying sword shattered upon contact with the sword chi. After dispersing the demon-slaying sword, the sword chi was still very powerful, but it did not attack him. Instead, it went back into the stone room. This sword chi had no intention of harming anyone, so he was relieved. His divine sense entered the stone room. In the stone room, there was only a stone table that was 3 feet long. On the table, there was a book made of metal. There was a blank picture scroll hanging on the back wall. The sword chi and sword intent came from this picture scroll. What had always attracted him was this blank scroll. Previously, the sword cultivator puppet had let him go after helping him break through the array formation. Moreover, the sword chi just now did not harm him. Moreover, the feeling this painting gave off was a bit similar to the divine sword diagram of the Tai sword sect. His divine sense entered the painting, and a strong suction force came. Wang Daoyuan, a dignified body-tempering cultivator, was actually powerless to resist and was directly pulled into the stone room by this suction force. Only when he was a foot away from the painting did he stop. At this moment, an image appeared on the scroll. It was a longsword without any decorations. Then, the longsword used the demon-slaying sword and slashed at him. Wang Daoyuan wanted to resist, but he found that his body could not move. Just as he was about to use the spiritual pearl, the scene in front of him changed drastically. He appeared in a valley. This valley was very ordinary. There were no spirit veins, and the mountain ranges on both sides were very narrow. Faint sounds of fighting and children crying could be heard in front of him. Just as he was about to go over and take a look, a few chi refinement cultivators ran towards him with children in their arms. Behind them were a few cultivators covered in blood. When these women and cultivators saw him, it was as if they had seen a life-saving straw. The women's eyes were filled with gratitude. Then, they quickly ran in the direction behind him. A cultivator with white hair cupped his hands and said, "Senior, there are demons wantonly killing humans. Senior, please save us." Before he finished speaking, a blood-red light flew over from the front. The blood-red light flashed, and the cultivators running behind him died instantly. All the blood in their bodies was sucked out. Wang Daoyuan could not be more familiar with the aura in the blood-red light. It was the aura of the blood demon lineage. The spirit energy in the blood-red light was already at the late stage of yuanying, comparable to true Lord Lifeless. With Wang Daoyuan's strength, he was no match for it at all. After killing the cultivators, the blood-red light chased after the women with children. It did not pay attention to Wang Daoyuan at all. Wang Daoyuan had a choice in front of him. Should he take the risk to block the blood-red light and save those people? Or should he pretend that he did not see it and leave this place? At this moment, the panicked cries of women and children could be heard behind him. There were also cries for help. As a cultivator of a family, it was natural for him to protect the weak in the family. Although these women and children were not from the family, they were still humans. Wang Daoyuan could not bear to watch them die. Just as the blood-red light was about to pounce on a child, Wang Daoyuan waved his hand and slashed out a sword qi to block the blood-red light. The blood-red light stopped attacking the women and children and turned to attack him. After making a choice, Wang Daoyuan heaved a sigh of relief in his heart, as if he had put down a heavy burden. He took out the white tiger blade and slashed at the blood-red light. Before he slashed out, the scene in front of him changed drastically. The blood-red light, the valley, and the women and children disappeared. He appeared in a cave abode. In front of him was a white-robed cultivator with his back facing him. There was no trace of spirit energy on this person's body. He was no different from an ordinary person. A resolute voice sounded. The scene just now was a test for you. Since you are willing to face the demons who are far stronger than you for a few women and children with low cultivation levels, it means that you have the righteousness of the human race in your heart. Since you have comprehended the sword intent of Guiyuan, talent is naturally not a problem. To be able to take the risk for the righteousness of the human race, your character is passable. You are qualified to be my successor. Remember, no matter how high your cultivation level is, even if you ascend and become an immortal, you will still be a human. I have not established any forces in my life and have only taken in 2 disciples. They are also fighting a bloody battle with the demons. It is hard to say whether they can survive in the future. Therefore, I let the 2 disciples leave their inheritance everywhere. Only the younger generation who comprehended the sword intent of Guiyuan can come here and inherit my inheritance. You have received my inheritance, so you are also my disciple. Grow up as soon as possible and do your part to resist the demons. Even I don't remember my name. The human race calls me Guiyuan Sword Immortal. After saying that, the scene in front of him disappeared again. Wang Daoyuan's body returned to the stone room. The picture scroll on the back wall was still there. There was a sword in the picture, emitting endless killing intent. However, this killing intent was not directed at him. Even, this sword gave him a sense of familiarity. He reached out and took the picture scroll. The sword in the picture did not have any intention of resisting. The material of this picture scroll was not ordinary. Its grade was higher than the brilliant sun gold in his hand. It was at least a 7th rank material. Now that he was not out of danger, it was not the time to study this thing. After putting the picture scroll and the golden book on the stone table into the space of the spiritual pearl, the killing intent in the surroundings disappeared. Outside the door of the hall, the cultivators who did not dare to enter rashly also felt the disappearance of the killing intent. Their expressions changed. This was especially true for True Lord Lifeless. He naturally valued things related to sword cultivation the most. Now that the items were gone, he was extremely anxious. Everyone, Dao Yu, wealth comes from danger. There is no such thing as wanting benefits without taking a little risk. If we continue to delay, all the benefits will fall into the hands of that brat. True Lord Raging Sea's 3-eyed golden monkey clone was being beaten up by the puppet. He was also very anxious. However, with his own strength, he had no confidence in defeating the puppet. Therefore, he did not enter rashly. Now that True Lord Lifeless had spoken, he also echoed. True Lord Lifeless is right. Time waits for no one. Although the puppet inside is strong, we have 7 late-stage Yuaniing cultivators. Defeating it is not a problem. There are only 20 hours left before the secret realm closes. Everyone, are you just going to watch that brat play us and leave with the treasures in the hall? Chapter 748. Hearing their words, the others were also tempted. There were only 20 hours left before the mystic realm closed. There was no time to wait. The school of the Emperor Star's formation was so powerful that Master Demon Sealer, who was proficient in formations, naturally wanted to obtain some of the inheritance. He also encouraged, Wuxia, Henghai, Daoist Daoyu is right. There are 7 of us. Can't we take down a puppet? The school of the Emperor Star contains things that dozens of generations of our ancestors have yearned for. Don't forget that the 7 Stars Sky Palace's formation will automatically repair itself. If we miss this opportunity, where will we find someone who can break the school of the Emperor Star's formation? Even if he couldn't get all the inheritances of the school of the Emperor Star, he had to capture that brat. Otherwise, we won't be able to break the formation the next time we enter the palace. As the saying went, 3 men made a tiger. With their persuasion, the other 4 late-stage Yuanian cultivators also let go of their last shred of hesitation. The 7 of them reached an agreement and prepared to enter the school of the Emperor Star. Master Wuxia said, the early-stage Yuanian and peak-stage Golden Core cultivators will stay outside to prevent that kid from escaping. As for the mid-stage Yuanian cultivators, pick a few of the more skilled ones and enter together. They might be of some use if we encounter danger. Then, the 7 late-stage Yuanian cultivators and 3 mid-stage Yuanian cultivators entered the school of the Emperor Star. Under Master Henghai's guidance, the group quickly arrived at the 3-eyed golden monkey. This fellow's physical body was weak and its strongest attack was the soul. The puppet's control was similar to the soul, but it was protected by special spiritual materials. It was too difficult to damage the puppet's core. They could only rely on their own agility to deal with the puppet. Master Henghai immediately put away the 3-eyed golden monkey's avatar. The other Yuanian cultivators surrounded the puppet. Master Wuxia asked, Daoyu Yuji, the Tianji Palace is proficient in refining artifacts. What's the puppet's weakness? Master Yuji shook his head. Usually, the puppet's weakness is where the spirit stones are installed. The spiritual energy that the puppet needed to move came from the spiritual energy coming from the ground, so it had no weaknesses. As long as his feet were off the ground, he would naturally lose the ability to resist once his spiritual power was exhausted. Within the flight restriction array, trying to do so was harder than ascending to the heavens. Let's not waste any more time. This puppet is only at the peak of the Tier 5 standard. With so many of us, we should be able to take care of it. Everyone, Daoyu, don't hold back anymore. Use all your trump cards and get rid of this puppet as soon as possible so that we can find the treasure. Everyone used their special skills to attack the puppet. The materials used to refine the puppet were all 6th-tier materials, and they were extremely strong. Everyone was unable to destroy it in a short period of time. The 10 of them spent close to 2 hours before the puppet lost its ability to resist. Perfected Lord Yuji casually placed the damaged puppet into his universe ring. Since he was the one in charge of dealing with the puppets, no one had any objections. After dealing with the puppet, the group continued to venture deeper. Soon, they encountered a second puppet. This fellow's strength was slightly stronger than the previous one. It took another 3 hours to get rid of it. After dealing with the 2 puppets without losing a single cultivator, everyone's confidence soared. Soon, the sword cultivator puppet taught them a lesson. After Wang Daoyuan took away sword Immortal Gue Yuan's inheritance, the sword cultivator puppet began to wander around. These people did not follow in Wang Daoyuan's footsteps, but they were still bumped into by the sword cultivator puppet. The sword in the puppet's hand was extremely lethal. As soon as the 2 sides clashed, a mid-stage Yuanian cultivator was killed. The sword cultivator puppet no longer had anything to protect. After killing a Yuanian cultivator, it did not continue to attack and instead wandered around. That was because they had already wasted more than 4 hours on the first 2 puppets. This puppet was even more powerful. If they continued to waste time with it, it would probably take them 4 hours to take it down. Even so, they would still lose a lot of manpower. The gains did not make up for the losses. Everyone no longer cared about the sword cultivator puppet and began to search for treasures. Perfected demon sealer took out a compass and began to search for places with more obvious spiritual power fluctuations. After Wang Daoyuan obtained sword Immortal Gui Yuan's inheritance, he also began to search other places. He did not expect to find anything good. It would be fine as long as he could stall until the mystic realm closed. Previously, with the inheritance sensing, he was very efficient. Now that he could no longer sense it, he did not know where to go. The flight restriction array here was too powerful. Even the soul-chasing bees could not fly. He took Dahei out of the spirit pearl space and let it use its sense of smell to explore the surrounding situation. The fog here had a strong suppressive effect on the divine sense and the five senses. However, Dahei's sense of smell was also excellent. Even in this environment, it could smell the situation within 5 kilometers. Far away from the gate and the place where the inheritance was found, they did not encounter any more puppets. It seemed that these puppets were only guarding the gate and the important inheritances. Places without these things were relatively safe. After walking aimlessly for 4 hours, Dahei sent a voice transmission to Wang Daoyuan, "Master, there is the smell of burning things 5 kilometers ahead." There had been no living people in the 7 stars heavenly palace for tens of thousands of years. The smell of burning things could only come from a place of alchemy and weapon refinement. Dahei did not smell anyone else, which meant that it was safe for the time being. It could go in and explore. The man and the dog went straight forward without encountering any obstacles along the way. Soon, they came to a place 2 kilometers away from the target and encountered another puppet. This puppet was a burly man more than 10 feet tall, holding a hammer in his hand. Judging from its posture, its combat power was definitely not low. It did not take the initiative to attack, and Wang Daoyuan did not intend to attack either. The most important thing now was to stay alive. He did not lack the refining inheritance, so there was no need to risk his life. He could wait for the cultivators of the major forces to come and let them deal with the puppets. When the mystic realm was about to close, he would find an opportunity to snatch some good things. Found a pillar nearby, and hid in it. Dahei shrank its body and hid in his clothes. The man and the dog waited for a full 2 hours before 2 people came over. These 2 people were True Lord Sweeping Sea of Blood Shark and a cultivator of the One clan. After seeing the puppet, the 2 of them were delighted. True Lord Sweeping Sea said with a smile, "Wen Daoyu, we have not encountered any puppets for more than 2 hours. If we encounter a puppet here, there might be extremely valuable treasures nearby. It seems that we are going to make a fortune. There are only 2 of us here, so let's not hide. Show us your true skills and get rid of this puppet as soon as possible. We'll split the loot in half." The cultivator of the One clan also agreed and took out an ice blue bead. True Lord Sweeping Sea also took out a Tier 5 upper-grade tiger puppet from his interspatial ring. The 2 of them approached the puppet, and soon the puppet moved. The cultivator of the One clan threw the bead in his hand, and a cold air spread out. Soon, a thick layer of ice armor appeared on the puppet. The tiger puppet pounced and pushed the burly man puppet to the ground. Seeing that the puppet was restrained, the 2 of them immediately went forward and attacked the burly man puppet's joints. Soon, the burly man puppet was destroyed. There was an obvious door behind the burly man puppet. Furthermore, there were no restrictions or mechanisms on the door, only some simple formations to prevent spirit chi from leaking out. It was very similar to an ordinary earth-fire chamber. The 2 of them entered the door easily, and there was a huge space of 10,000 feet inside. There were hundreds of fire eyes inside, and most of the formations were still intact. The earth fire within was still burning intensely. In the center of these fire eyes was a 4-legged cauldron that was 10 feet wide. Given its shape, it was undoubtedly a weapon cauldron. This place should be a weapon refinement chamber. The two of them were overjoyed. There was a lot of profit in a weapon refinement chamber, and there might even be a weapon refinement legacy. Chapter 749. The weapon tripod was simple without any decorations or inscriptions. However, it emitted the aura of an superior grade 6 dermic weapon. The two of them wanted to take the weapon tripod away, but they could not do anything to it. They wanted to drip blood on it, but to no avail. Two streams of flames shot out from the weapon tripod and attacked the two of them. That was the attack of a grade 6 dermic weapon, and they were only late-stage Yuaniing cultivators. The two of them did not dare to take it head-on and used escape techniques to retreat. The attack range of the two streams of flames was only 1,000 feet. After the two of them retreated, the flames stopped chasing them. Perfected Lord Rampaging Sea was still in shock. That was close. If not for the fact that the flames stopped chasing us, we would have died here. The Wen clan cultivator gasped for breath as well. An superior grade 6 dermic weapon might have been a grade 7 dermic weapon in the past. After being nurtured by the earth fire for so many years, there's an 80% chance that it has an artifact spirit. Without an owner, the artifact spirit would be in a dormant state and would only attack and defend instinctively. It seems like the artifact spirit doesn't like us and doesn't allow us to be its owner. Perfected Lord Rampaging Sea nodded. We don't have that fortune. Let's not court death. With that said, he began to search the surroundings of the weapon refinement room. Even if the weapon refinement rooms of major factions did not have finished dermic weapons and weapon refinement inheritances, there would be no shortage of high-grade materials. The fog in the weapon refinement room was much thinner. With their spirit consciousness cultivation, they could scout a few thousand feet away. The weapon refinement room was only 1,000 feet square, and they could scan the entire room with their spirit consciousness. The two of them came to a corner of the weapon refinement room where there was a bookshelf with 15 books on it. The golden books placed in the weapon refinement room were definitely weapon refinement inheritances and might even contain inheritances for refining puppets. The value of those items far exceeded that of ordinary weapon refinement inheritances. As the successor of the Imperial Regency, Perfected Lord Rampaging Sea naturally knew the value of puppets. Unfortunately, there was an array formation on the bookshelf and the two of them did not dare to act rashly. They checked carefully, trying to find a way to break the array formation. Outside the weapon refinement room, Wang Daoyuan was still hiding obediently and did not act rashly. Dahe was constantly reporting the situation to him through voice transmission. Wang Daoyuan felt a little regretful that the two of them didn't fight, so he didn't have a chance to make a move. The two of them stared at the bookshelf for more than an hour but made no progress. They had no choice but to temporarily give up on the bookshelf and look for refining materials and finished artifacts. The crafting room was opened by the two of them, and the aura of the flame spread out. This aura was rather obvious. 2 hours later, other people were attracted. The newcomers were True Monarch Yuji and True Monarch Demon Sealing. Naturally, the spiritual energy emitted by the flames could not be hidden from True Monarch Demon Sealing's compass. The two of them entered the crafting room and saw True Monarch Rampaging Sea and the cultivators of the Wen clan searching for crafting materials. Perfected Lord Yuji sneered, "Dao Yu, that's not very nice of you. Why didn't you inform us that you found such a good place? Why did you take action on your own?" They were all old foxes, so there was nothing to be embarrassed about. True Lord Henghai replied with a smile, "Daoyu's words make sense. Why don't we inform the other 3 Daoyus and have them split the loot together?" True Monarch Demon Sealing said hurriedly, "They're still looking for other treasures. Let's not disturb them." The 4 of them exchanged glances and smiled, knowing what the other party was thinking. When he saw that Perfected Lord Yuji and True Monarch Demon Sealing were both staring at the weapon tripod, the cultivator of the Wen clan chuckled. Don't think about that thing. If we could get our hands on it, would we have let you guys see it? There's a bookshelf here with a legacy of weapon refinement. There might even be something for refining puppets. The two of us tried to open it previously but we couldn't. Since Demon Sealing Dao Yu is proficient in formations, I wonder if he can open it. In any case, it's just some legacies. After we get our hands on them, we'll make 3 copies and each of the 4 clans will get a copy. How about that? There was naturally no way they would reject such a good deal. True Monarch Demon Sealing took out his compass once more and began checking the restrictions on the bookshelf. Although there was not much time left, they were not in a hurry. Such a large palace was not something they could explore in a single go. For example, the most important cultivation technique legacies were hidden even more secretively and had stronger protective formations. They did not have the strength to search for those items one by one either. They could only wait for the next opening of the secret realm and have a soul formation cultivator come over personally. True Monarch Demon Sealing's methods were decent as he spent 12 hours to figure out the restrictions completely. There were less than 4 hours left before the secret realm closed. They did not delay any longer and seized the time to attack the restrictions. The so-called restriction was a special small formation that was used to protect some small things. Although restrictions were not resistant to forceful dismantling methods, they could destroy the items they were protecting in advance. Given True Monarch Demon Sealing's methods, there was naturally no way he would allow the legacies within to be destroyed. The light emitted from the compass fused into the light barrier of the restriction to prevent it from destroying the golden books within. Thereafter, the 4 of them began attacking the restriction. After all, the restriction was an ownerless item. Even if it was only at level 6, it could not withstand the continuous attacks of the 4 of them. More than 2 hours later, a soft cracking sound could be heard as the defensive light barrier shattered. The 4 of them were delighted, the secret realm was about to close. If they could not break it, they would never have the chance to get their hands on those items in the future. The 4 of them hurriedly made their moves to fight for those golden books. No matter how well they discussed it previously, it was all nonsense. In the face of benefits, whoever got their hands on them would get it. It was such a good item, but if others were to copy it, its value would be greatly reduced. The 4 of them wanted to put the golden books into their cosmos rings, but they would be destroyed by others. They could only snatch the golden books with their hands like local ruffians. They each took 2 golden books and were about to continue fighting for the other golden books when 4 sword rays attacked them. A voice that sounded like it had just woken up was heard. Trespassing into Ziwei Palace and breaking the restrictions. Behead. Then, a puppet similar to an ordinary person jumped down from the crafting room. It was holding a 3-foot-long sword in its hand and attacked the 4 of them as soon as it landed. Although the voice was vague, it traveled very far. Wang Daoyuan was a few miles away from the crafting room, but he could hear it clearly. He knew that the 4 of them had gotten some benefits and hurriedly approached the door of the crafting room. It was less than half a cup of tea's time before the secret realm closed. Since the 4 late-stage Yuanying realm cultivators were being chased by the puppet, it was a good opportunity for him to steal them. When he arrived at the door, he saw the 4 of them being chased by a puppet. The puppet had the aura of the sword intent of Guiyuan. Although the fog here was thinner, it still suppressed the spirit consciousness of cultivators. It was already difficult for these people to discover him outside, so it was even more impossible for them to find him now. The 4 of them had stayed in the corner of the crafting room for a long time and Blackie had already grasped their whereabouts. Wang Daoyuan went straight to the bookshelf. He did not know if it was because he was too weak or because of the sword intent of Guiyuan, but the puppet did not attack him. He arrived before the bookshelf and kept the remaining 7 golden books into the space of his spirit pearl. The 4 of them had been staring at the golden books. Now that the golden books were gone, they could naturally sense it. Perfected Lord Yuji cursed, "It's you again, thief. Hand over the golden books obediently." Before he could finish his words, the puppet swung its sword at him again. Perfected Lord Yuji could not be bothered to threaten him and hurriedly dodged the attack. The other three seized the opportunity to attack the bookshelf. Wang Daoyuan hurriedly cast an escape technique to dodge the attack. Naturally, his whereabouts were exposed the moment he cast the dermic art. However, the secret realm was about to close. Furthermore, the four of them did not dare to focus all their attention on him with the puppet whose strength was comparable to that of a soul formation realm cultivator. Indeed, their attacks left some marks on the bookshelf and angered the puppet. He waved the sword in his hand and 3 sword chi slashed at the 3 of them. The 3 of them could not be bothered to chase after Wang Daoyuan anymore and hurriedly dodged the attacks. Wang Daoyuan hid beside the gigantic weapon tripod. He did not have any designs on the tripod and flames spewed out of it. At that moment, Perfected Lord Yuji also threw out an iron caltrop casually towards him. This time, Wang Daoyuan was attacked from 2 sides and any attack could threaten his life. Chapter 750. Hidden weapons were also a common method of body tempering cultivators. After all, their physical bodies were strong. However, in terms of long-range damage, they were far inferior to ordinary Dharma cultivators and even more incomparable to sword cultivators. However, their physical strength was extremely strong and the hidden weapons they threw were very powerful. The caltrip in front of him was already in superior grade 5 Dharma artifact. It was definitely powerful when thrown by Perfected Lord Yuji. The distance of a few thousand feet was too short for Yuaniing cultivators. Wang Daoyuan hurriedly dodged but the caltrip still brushed past his left shoulder, leaving a deep scar. A deep wound was left behind, and there was still some spiritual energy left in it, constantly damaging his physical body. He did not have time to heal his injuries as the flames spewed out by the cauldron had already enveloped him. The flames released by a grade 6 Dharma artifact were extremely powerful. Wang Daoyuan released Yinglong from Yuaniing's glabella and let it devour the flames. Unfortunately, the flames were too strong and Yinglong could not absorb too much. It was useless to use the true fire of Scarlet Yang to consume it. Seeing Wang Daoyuan being burned by the flames, Perfected Lord Yuji mocked, "Little thief, call out the golden book and I might be able to save your life." Wang Daoyuan ignored him and used an escape technique to escape 1,000 feet away from the cauldron. The cauldron no longer spewed out flames but the flames on his body did not extinguish either. If this continued, he would only be burned alive. He could only use his last resort and take out the spiritual pearl from his sea of consciousness. As soon as it left Wang Daoyuan's sea of consciousness, it began to absorb spirit energy crazily. The spirit energy in the entire Ziwei Hall was rapidly gathering towards the spiritual pearl. The flames on Wang Daoyuan's body were also absorbed by the spiritual pearl. Since he was already exposed, he might as well take the cauldron as well. He came to the side of the cauldron and flames spewed out of it again. Unfortunately, the flames were absorbed by the spiritual pearl as soon as they left the cauldron. The entire cauldron began to shake violently and slowly left the ground. At this time, it was time for the secret realm to close. Everyone's bodies were flashing with a dazzling white light. Wang Daoyuan also clearly felt a repulsive force. The flames within the cauldron churned, and the entire cauldron kept shaking, as if it wanted to break free from the suction force of the spirit pearl. The power of the spiritual pearl was so strong that Reverend Yuji and the other 3 were stunned. They no longer dared to attack Wang Daoyuan. The cauldrons that they were unable to move were all sucked off the ground by the spiritual beads. If they were to become the target of the spirit pearl, they would not be able to resist at all. The shaking of the cauldron gradually weakened, and it was no longer able to resist the suppression of the spiritual pearl. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared from the crafting room. At that moment, the repulsive force was already extremely strong. Wang Daoyuan, True Lord Yuji, and the others were unable to resist it. The sword cultivator puppet was still chasing after the four of them. On the weapon rack in the corner of the refinement room, there were still quite a number of grade 6 dermic weapons. He wanted to take away the puppet and the magic tool, but unfortunately, time did not allow him to do so. The 7 Stars Heavenly Palace must have been a large force in the past. Such a large force would definitely not only have the legacy of crafting. In addition to cultivation techniques, there would definitely be many inheritances of pills, talismans, formations, and spirit plant farmers. Unfortunately, he could not bring out so many inheritances. The next time he came here would be 500 years later. He did not know if he would still be interested in the inheritances of the 7 Stars Heavenly Palace by then. At that moment, his whole body was floating in the air. Even the flight restriction array was useless. He hurriedly put the spirit pearl back into his sea of consciousness, lest it be separated from him when he was expelled from the secret realm. Suddenly, a light screen appeared above the stone room. It was exactly the same as the light screen at the entrance of the secret realm. Wang Daoyuan and the other 4 people were sucked into the light screen. Then, there was darkness in front of them. After an unknown period of time, the scene in front of them began to brighten. At that moment, Wang Daoyuan was in the middle of the sea. He was surrounded by seawater. Every time the 7 Stars secret realm closed, it would teleport the cultivators who entered to the sea around Hidden Yuan Island. This should be the vicinity of Hidden Yuan Island, but he did not know where it was. He released his clone Liao Yang from the space of the Spirit Pearl and let him fly high into the sky to check the surrounding situation. Hidden Yuan Island had a radius of tens of thousands of miles, so it was naturally very conspicuous. Wang Daoyuan confirmed that he was more than 50,000 miles southwest of Hidden Yuan Island, which was relatively safe. The large islands in the Sea of 7 Stars were all in the east. He fled all the way to the west, and there were no large islands along the way. He took out the repaired 4th grade flying boat from the space of the Spirit Pearl and flew all the way to the west. This time, his injuries were not light. His internal organs were injured by the sword cultivator puppet. His shoulder was hit by Supreme Yuji's iron caltrops, and he was burned by the flames in the big cauldron. He let his clone Liao Yang control the flying boat while he healed in the cabin. Supreme Yuji was a metal-attributed body-tempering cultivator. The remaining spiritual energy in Wang Daoyuan's wounds was also metal-attributed. He drew out a wisp of Tai golden flame from his Yuanying and completely burned the metal-attributed spiritual energy. Then, he used the Tsang Dragon Pearl to heal his injuries. The Tsang Dragon Pearl was very effective in treating external injuries. The wounds and burns caused by the iron caltrops quickly recovered. His internal injuries were not serious to begin with, so it was not a big problem now. In the space of the Spirit Pearl, his clone had already finished checking his harvest. The spiritual plants that he had obtained before had also grown after staying in the space for such a long time. The branches of the nascent soul fruit had also grown roots and new buds. The core fragmentation grass, nascent cultivating pill, and 9 death resurrection pill herbs were planted in the newly appeared spiritual fields. Of course, these things took a long time to grow, with the longest taking about 3,000 to 4,000 years to mature. The nascent soul fruit needed 5,000 years from germination to flowering. It also needed 5,000 years from flowering to ripening. He had obtained the branches, so it was hard to say when they would bloom. The golden hepta essence found in the secret realm had now merged with the gold spiritual vein. His clone also flipped through the inheritance of the Guiyuan Sword Saint. This golden book was called the Guiyuan Record. The Guiyuan Record was divided into 2 parts. One part was the inheritance of the Guiyuan Sword Saint. The content of this inheritance was very simple. It did not record as many things as the one he had obtained in Beiyuan. There was no content about sword cultivation spells. Of course, Wang Daoyuan did not need this content. With the sword energy transformation technique, he could create his own spells on the basis of existing spells. The inheritance of the Guiyuan Sword Saint was divided into 3 parts. They were the sword intent, the technique, and the method to refine the natal Dharma artifact. The sword intent part was essentially the same as the incomplete golden book he had obtained from the Guiyuan sword sect. It was more specific about comprehending the sword intent of the Guiyuan Sword Saint, the method to merge the sword intent, and the method to improve the sword intent. This technique was a non-elemental sword cultivation technique. It complemented the sword intent of the Guiyuan Sword Saint and could be cultivated to the Earth Immortal realm. The Earth Immortal realm was the highest cultivation realm in the Qian Yuan realm. One could ascend to the Immortal realm at any time. The Guiyuan Sword Saint had cultivated to the Earth Immortal realm. However, he did not ascend because he was resisting the demons. According to the records of the Guiyuan record, below the Earth Immortal realm was the Mahayana realm. Only at this realm could one be called a mighty figure. Below the Mahayana realm was the Soul Formation realm. The highest level of the Guiyuan Sword Saint was the Universal Restoration technique. It fused all one's strength into one's sword. It could be said that it fused all the spells into one's sword. To reach this level, one had to cultivate the technique in the Guiyuan record. Behind this technique, there was a method to reach the Universal Restoration technique. It was the Dharma Artifact Refining Technique. This Dharma Artifact Refining Technique was called the 3 Treasures Artifact Nurturing Technique. The 3 treasures of a person referred to the essence, qi, and spirit. All the power of a person was derived from the essence, qi, and spirit. One used the essence, qi, and spirit to nurture the Dharma artifact and finally fused it into the Dharma artifact. When one reached that step, one would naturally be able to use the Dharma artifact to unleash its full power during a battle. The 3 Treasures Artifact Nurturing Technique did not nurture an actual Dharma artifact. Instead, it was more like a special artifact spirit. This artifact spirit could fuse with any Dharma artifact and unleash a certain amount of power. Different Dharma artifacts fused with the artifact spirit would unleash different powers. In order to unleash the strongest power, it was best to fuse it with the sword. Chapter 751. Although the weapon spirit cultivated by the 3 Treasures tool nurturing technique did not have a physical body, it could not be without a physical body in the beginning. The tool nurturing technique also required a prototype of a magic tool to nurture. It required the essence of all kinds of refining materials to be injected into the prototype. Only when the weapon spirit was formed could the prototype be discarded. The requirements for the prototype were extremely high. It needed to be able to carry a large amount of spiritual power and the essence of refining materials. After all, to nurture a weapon spirit, it also required a large amount of spiritual power, divine sense, and various other kinds of energy. The amount of spiritual power that such a spiritual object could carry was at least not less than the total amount of spiritual power of 1,000,000 high-grade spirit stones. Guiyuan Sword Immortal was quite considerate. He listed many useful spiritual objects. For example, high-grade 6th order pseudo-dragon pearl, high-grade 5th order spirit spring pearl, and so on. These things were not easy to find. Any one of them could only be found by chance. At the very least, it had to be a mid-grade 5th level 5 elements essence. Wang Daoyuan really did have the earth essence and the hepta-gold essence. The hepta-gold essence was high-grade 5th order and was completely sufficient. The earth essence was only low-grade 5th order and needed to grow for a few more years before it could be used. As for the other supplementary materials, it depended on the characteristics of the refiner. Since the Guiyuan sword intent could accommodate all things, it naturally had a strong tolerance. The techniques in the Guiyuan record were non-elemental. The Tai sword in Beiyuan was of the metal attribute. In addition to the inheritance of Guiyuan sword Immortal, the Guiyuan record also contained a message from the Master of the Seven Stars Heavenly Palace. According to the Guiyuan record, the Seven Stars Secret Realm was a territory controlled by a large force, the Xunlian School. The Xunlian School's sect master, Supreme Divinity Xian, was a good friend of Guiyuan sword Immortal for many years. Guiyuan sword Immortal's three treasures tool nurturing technique was also taught by Supreme Divinity Xian. Supreme Divinity was a title that only the best among the Mahayana cultivators could have. Supreme Divinity Xian's cultivation was only a step away from the Earth Immortal realm. More than 70,000 years ago, during the most intense war between humans and demons, Guiyuan sword Immortal's second disciple brought the Guiyuan record and the Guiyuan sword diagram to Hidden Essence Island. He entrusted the inheritance to Supreme God Xian and asked him to refine an 8th order origin returning sword. This sword was naturally meant for sword Immortal Guiyuan. Even in that era, sword Immortal Guiyuan was one of the top combatants of the human race. The level 8 origin returning sword greatly increased his battle prowess. It was also of great significance to enhance the strength of the human race. The Supreme God Xian naturally did not decline. He took out the level 8 mixed divine iron that was the trump card of the Xunlian school and forged a sword of Guiyuan. After the forging was completed, the divine god Xian personally sent the Guiyuan sword to the front line of the ancient Dragon Mountain's defense against the demons. After that, there were no records. The supreme god Xian probably did not return to the 7-star secret realm. The supreme god Xian's records also mention the forging process of the sword of Guiyuan. Before officially forging the Guiyuan sword, he also used the 6th grade mixed yuan refined iron to forge a sword embryo. He wanted to forge a 7th grade sword of Guiyuan for the second disciple of sword Immortal Guiyuan. It could be considered as practice. However, the situation at ancient Dragon Mountain was not good. The supreme god Xian did not have enough time to practice. This 7th level lower grade origin returning sword had only been refined into a sword embryo. He had to seize the time to forge the 8th grade sword of Guiyuan. This sword embryo was nurtured in a crafting cauldron, which was placed above the fire eye. He planned to continue forging after returning the sword to sword Immortal Guiyuan. Seeing this, Wang Daoyuan was pleasantly surprised. The crafting cauldron in the crafting room was now in the space of the spiritual pearl. Even if it was just a sword embryo, it was not comparable to a 5th grade magic weapon. It just so happened that he did not have a 5th grade magic weapon on hand. If he could take out this sword embryo, it could be considered as an additional trump card. Moreover, this sword embryo was made of mixed yuan refined iron, which was a non-elemental magic weapon. It was very suitable for cultivators with 5 spirit roots. He also had the sword intent of Guiyuan. Using this sword embryo, he could still exert a lot of power. In the secret realm, he only took away the crafting cauldron at the end. There was still a flame in the cauldron, but he did not have time to check it. The space of the spiritual pearl was his territory. As his cultivation level increased, his control over the spiritual pearl became stronger. After the crafting cauldron was put in, the fire was still relatively strong. Wang Daoyuan placed it on the newly added land at the edge of the spiritual pearl and sucked away all the surrounding spirit energy. No matter how strong this magic weapon was, it could not be strong without the nourishment of spirit energy for a long time. He probed into the space of the spiritual pearl with his divine consciousness to check on the crafting cauldron. This guy had a bad temper. As soon as he probed with his divine consciousness, flames spewed out from the cauldron. Wang Daoyuan didn't bother with it anymore. He didn't need to fight anyone now. He first put this crafting cauldron in the space of the spiritual pearl and waited for its fire to dissipate. Of the 7 golden books obtained from the crafting room, 5 of them were ordinary crafting inheritances. The content was from the 1st to the 8th grade of crafting. However, the content was not complete. There were only 4th, 5th, and 8th grade of crafting inheritances. In addition, there were also some special weapon patterns recorded. The missing things should have been taken away by others. It did not matter if a part was incomplete. The treasure cauldron lineage of the Divine Weapon Pavilion had a 6th grade inheritance. The 7th grade was at the Mahayana level. When it was necessary to use the 7th grade crafting technique, it should be a Mahayana cultivator. There was no upper limit to the lifespan of a Mahayana cultivator. However, after living for more than 10,000 years, there might be a tribulation of 3 decline of essence, chi, and spirit. With a long lifespan, there was enough time to find inheritances. With the 6th and 8th grade inheritances in hand, it was not a problem to spend some time to deduce. The remaining 2 books were also crafting inheritances. It was the inheritance of the puppet technique. This puppet technique was called the Divine Puppet Technique and was also one of the special skills of the Xunlian school. These 2 books were not complete, but fortunately, they were more coherent and recorded the refining method from the 1st to the 5th grade of the puppet technique. According to the general outline, this puppet technique should be able to reach the 7th grade. The remaining parts should have been snatched away. Having these gains already made Wang Daoyuan overjoyed beyond his expectations. Puppets needed something similar to a soul to control. It also needed special materials to carry this soul-like thing. Wang Daoyuan did not lack these special materials. The yellow spring willow in the spirit pearl space had been planted for many years. The earliest yellow spring willow was already a superior grade stage for spiritual wood. Later, in the yellow spring mystic realm, he dug up the yellow spring willow's stump. After this stump was planted, many side branches grew out. It was now a middle grade stage for spiritual plant. No matter how many puppets he refined, he did not lack special materials. However, he did not have enough ordinary stage 5 crafting materials. In the Sea of 7 Stars, stage 5 crafting materials were not rare. It was not a problem to go out and find them. Wang Daoyuan had offended all the major factions in the mystic realm. There would probably be a warrant for his arrest soon. Moreover, it would be jointly issued by the 7 Stars Alliance, the Blood Shark, and the Black Ice Island. At this time, he should find a hidden place to stay. It would not be too late to hide for a few years and wait for the outside world to pass before coming out again. The flying boat flew all the way west for more than 500,000 kilometers. Because he was fast, he did not go to the various islands to resupply. Therefore, he did not encounter any pursuers. 500,000 kilometers west of Hidden Yuan Island was the edge of the 7-star ocean's immortal cultivation world. The blood shark pirates would not extend their hands here. The only threats here were stage 5 demonic beasts and rogue cultivators who were not afraid of death. He changed direction and flew southwest. In the face of an imminent warrant, hiding in the crater of Skyfire Island was not safe. A place where there were no cultivators at all was the safest. His target was the small volcanic island with a teleportation formation 1 million kilometers west of the Sea of 7 Stars. There were no resources there, and the spirit chi was relatively thin. It was surrounded by the vast sea and had no value. Naturally, no cultivators were willing to go there. Half a month later, he arrived at this nameless volcanic island without any surprises or dangers. He entered the stone room where the teleportation formation was, set up a formation, sealed the entrance, and went into seclusion in this stone room. The most important thing was to solve the problem of cultivation techniques. Chapter 752. Although the techniques recorded in the Guiyuan record were compatible with the Guiyuan sword intent, they were not completely suitable for Wang Daoyuan. Even if the techniques left behind by the sword Immortal were not suitable for him, they would not be of much use. Of course, this did not mean that he would not use the techniques in the Beiyuan record at all. The techniques and sword intent of the Beiyuan sword Immortal were all about returning to origin. The 5-spirit Immortal transformation technique that he mainly cultivated was also about absorbing all things for his own use. The two had a lot in common, so they could be used together. He had 3 techniques for Yuanying and above. They were perfected Lord 100 Spirits technique, the True Dragon physical training technique, and the Beiyuan record that he had just obtained. He also knew how to cultivate the Yuanying realm. The main way to cultivate the Yuanying realm was to continuously strengthen the Yuanying. Because Yuanying contained essence, energy, and spirit, it was already difficult to distinguish between them. Therefore, Yuanying techniques all required the cultivation of spirit energy, divine sense, and blood. Different techniques focused on different things. Perfected Lord 100 Spirit's main method of attack was spells, while his technique focused on spirit energy. The True Dragon physical training technique was a body tempering technique, so it naturally focused on blood. The Beiyuan record was a sword cultivation technique, and sword intent was a power derived from the soul. Sword cultivation techniques used sword chi as the foundation. Therefore, sword cultivation techniques focused on spirit energy and divine sense, and looked down on blood. It was not that there were no techniques that focused on spirit energy, divine sense, and blood, but the more you focused on, the more your energy would be scattered. If you developed it in all aspects, it was very likely that you would be mediocre in all aspects. Techniques that focused on 3 aspects either consumed a lot of resources or had a very slow cultivation speed. For Wang Daoyuan, the consumption of resources was not a problem at all. Actually, in terms of divine sense cultivation, it was best to use the doppelganger soul nurturing technique as a reference. Unfortunately, his current doppelganger soul nurturing technique was too shallow. For the part of divine sense cultivation, he could only use the Beiyuan record as a reference. Naturally, the 5 spirit energy seeds could not be wasted. Yuanying was a new life, and it was a life born from a human body. Naturally, it was more like a human. Therefore, he could try to turn these 5 spiritual energy seeds into the 5 internal organs of Yuanying. If this idea could succeed, his Yuanying would definitely surpass that of ordinary cultivators. However, there was no precedent to follow, so he didn't dare to experiment on himself. It was better to wait until the cultivation technique was deduced before slowly trying it out. The new cultivation technique would retain the core of the 5 spirits Immortal transformation technique, the True Dragon body honing technique, and the divine sense cultivation method of the origin returning record. In terms of spiritual energy, he also needed to learn from the origin returning record. After all, this cultivation method was the best and most suitable for the Beiyuan sword intent. As for True Monarch 100 Spirits inheritance, it was of little use and could only be used as a reference. Wang Daoyuan released his doppelganger Liao Yang to stand guard outside while Yuanying entered the spirit pearl space. With the aid of the 60 times faster flow of time, he slowly deduced the cultivation technique. Although the Beiyuan record and the True Dragon physical conditioning technique were extremely advanced cultivation methods, the cultivation part of the Yuanying stage was still within the scope of his understanding. After 3 years, almost 200 years had passed in the spirit pearl space, he finally deduced the embryonic form of the cultivation technique that he wanted. Every mature cultivation technique required many years of polishing. Many cultivation techniques passed down from generation to generation were improved by countless generations of people. A newly created cultivation technique, no matter how well it was deduced before, would not lack flaws. If he rashly cultivated, it was very likely that something would go wrong. In serious cases, he might even go berserk. It was a pity that he didn't have a Yuanying doppelganger, so he could only rely on himself to test the cultivation technique. Yuanying returned to his sea of consciousness and cultivated the newly created cultivation technique. In order to prevent the newly created cultivation technique from having major flaws and causing him to go berserk, he set up a spirit isolation array around him, so that the spiritual energy of the outside world couldn't seep in. He was in a space without any spiritual energy, relying on the spiritual energy provided by the spirit gathering pearl to cultivate. In this way, he could control how much spiritual energy he absorbed when he cultivated the cultivation technique. The cultivation technique wasn't necessarily reliable, so he could absorb less spiritual energy and cultivate it slowly. Even if there were major problems, it wouldn't cause serious damage. After trying it out, he didn't find any major flaws that would cause him to go berserk. However, there were also many small flaws. It caused quite a bit of damage to his meridians, but with the Azure Dragon Pearl, they recovered quickly. Yuanying entered the space of the Spirit Gathering Pearl again and modified these small flaws. After modifying, he tried cultivating again. After repeatedly working on it for 5 years, more than 300 years had passed in the space of the Spirit Gathering Pearl, and finally, there were no obvious flaws. This new cultivation technique was a combination of 3 cultivation techniques. Wang Daoyuan didn't plan to change the name, so he still called it the 5-Spirit Immortal Art. Because of the existence of the spiritual energy seed, the cultivation speed was even faster than the origin returning record. However, the 3 paths of essence, qi, and spirit were equally important, and the consumption of resources was also huge. The cultivation speed was about 50% faster than the origin returning record, and the consumption of resources was 5 times faster than the origin returning record. 5 times the consumption, but only 50% faster. This was also because Wang Daoyuan's level was limited, and he was too far away from the origin returning sword Immortal. This cultivation speed could be said to be completely relying on resources, and it wasn't considered brilliant. However, it was fine as long as he could cultivate. With the spiritual fire in the space of the Spirit Gathering Pearl, he could withstand the consumption of resources. The large cauldron obtained from the Ziwei Palace had been isolated from spirit qi in the space of the Spirit Gathering Pearl for hundreds of years, and now it had finally stopped. Wang Daoyuan used his divine sense to attack it, but it didn't counterattack. He probed into the cauldron with his divine sense and felt the existence of an artifact spirit inside, but it was still in a deep sleep and couldn't communicate at all. The previous counterattack was also based on instinct. Unfortunately, this artifact spirit still didn't allow him to recognize it as its master. There was indeed a sword embryo inside, and its appearance was exactly the same as the sword in the origin returning sword diagram. After all, the sword embryo wasn't a complete sword, and the pattern wasn't complete. However, the internal structure was already very complete, and with Wang Daoyuan's current refining skills, he really didn't have the ability to forge the internal structure. This sword embryo could be refined into a natal dharma artifact first. Although it wasn't very suitable for him, it was still excellent for temporary use. As for the true natal dharma artifact, Wang Daoyuan already had an idea. He planned to use the 3 treasures tool fostering technique to nurture his natal dharma artifact again. Although the 5 elements demon suppression seal couldn't keep up with his cultivation realm, the 5 dharma artifacts each had their own functions and complementary dharma spells. These functions and dharma spells were of great value to Wang Daoyuan. The 5 elements demon suppression seal was compatible with the Purple Mansion phenomenon and had great potential, so he naturally couldn't give it up directly. Using the 3 treasures tool fostering technique and the 5 elements demon suppression seal, he could nurture 5 special artifact spirits. These 5 artifact spirits could also combine to form the Yinglong demon slaying sword and fuse with the Yinglong pattern on his glabella. In this way, he wouldn't have to discard the results of refining the 5 natal dharma artifacts. It was just that the resources and time consumed were also massive. He planned to use the 5 elements essence to execute the 3 treasures tool fostering technique. He already had the earth essence and aged metal essence, and he was still lacking the leaf fire essence, gui water essence, and wood essence. If he could find the 5 elements essence, not only could he use it to execute the 3 treasures tool fostering technique, but he could also fuse it with the spirit meridian in the space of the spirit pearl to promote the advancement of the spirit meridian. Moreover, the 5 elements essence could also be used as a 5-element spiritual item for yuanying when a golden core cultivator shatters his core to form the nascent soul. When he returned to Beiyuan Xiuxian in the future, Zhou Wan and the other clan members wouldn't need to find the spiritual items needed to shatter their core to form the nascent soul. Fusing the 5 elements essence into the spirit meridian could also promote the advancement of the spirit meridian. He wouldn't have to worry about the spirit meridian in the few spirit mountains of the clan. In the Qixing Si Xiuxian community, there were still many level 4 or level 5 elements essence. Now that he had a cultivation technique, it was time for him to go out and have some fun. Before that, he would first refine this sword embryo into his natal Dharma artifact. Yuanying entered the space of the spirit pearl and used the power of his divine sense to condense an artifact pattern on the sword embryo. He wanted to condense an inferior level 5 sword of origin pattern, which didn't exceed his current cultivation. It was just that his blacksmithing skills couldn't keep up, so he spent more time. It took him more than a month to refine the sword embryo into a natal Dharma artifact. In the space of the spirit pearl, it took him a few years to do so. With the sword of origin pattern and the cultivation technique, his strength had improved by quite a bit. When facing an ordinary late-stage yuanying cultivator, it wouldn't be a problem for him to protect himself. Chapter 753. After staying here for 8 years, there were some changes in the space of the spiritual pearl. The Crimson Yang primordial fire had finally broken through to the 5th level. The other 3 spirit fires were still the same. However, the peach tree sapling had also advanced to the lower 5th level. Moreover, there were a few small buds growing on its fingertips. Although it was unrealistic for it to bear fruit, it was already very difficult for there to be new changes. The 2 star cores had now been upgraded to the lower 5th level. The power of the stars that they emitted was stronger. Among the Dharma artifacts that he had obtained in the Purple Gold River branch in the Valley of Beasts, some had already recovered to the lower 5th level. Wang Daoyuan took out a heavy sword and used it as his Dharma artifact. In the 7 Stars Mystery Realm, he had always used the methods of a sword cultivator. Now that he was going to go out and look for the 5 elements essence, he still had to pay attention to his disguise. Carrying a heavy sword, he disguised himself as a physique cultivator in his prime. He suppressed his cultivation to the peak of the Golden Core realm and changed his appearance. He took a flying boat and left this nameless island, heading east. Previously in the 7 Stars Mystery Realm, he had been in disguise. Even if he encountered those cultivators that he had fought before, it was not a big deal. His goal was still Demon Hunter Island, where he could obtain some information. The 7 Stars Alliance and Blood Shark did not have much strength here. A day later, Wang Daoyuan arrived at Demon Hunter Island. There was not much difference from before. There was still a group of Golden Core Realm cultivators here. He went to Kaiyang Restaurant, ordered a few dishes and 2 jars of wine, and listened to the conversations of the other cultivators. These rogue cultivators were talking about the arrest warrant the most. He heard a young cultivator at the peak of the Golden Core realm say with a face of reverence, "The sword cultivator surnamed Zhou on the Heaven No. 1 arrest warrant is really in the limelight. I heard that he had just formed his nascent soul in the 7 Stars Mystery Realm and killed Perfected Golden Light of the 7 Stars Alliance." Although Perfected Golden Light was not strong, he had formed his nascent soul for nearly 100 years. After that, he snuck into the 7 Stars Heavenly Palace and stole a large amount of spiritual herbs under the noses of 7 late-stage yuanying cultivators. He even hid them for more than a day. The Seven Stars Alliance, Blood Shark, and Mystic Ice Island all put out a bounty of 1 million upper-grade spiritual stones for the capture of this person. If they could capture him alive and deliver him to the three families, they would be able to give him another nascent transformation fruit. Providing some reliable information could also earn 1,000 to 10,000 high-grade spirit stones. Speaking of which, I only stole some spirit herbs. There's no need to be like this, right? Hearing this, Wang Daoyuan didn't find it strange. After all that he had done, it would be strange if there wasn't a sky-high bounty. However, these three forces had concealed quite a lot of things. He did not mention a single word about Ziwei Hall. An old cultivator at the side smiled and said, "This is also a common trick used by large organizations. They issue wanted posters but refuse to reveal the real situation. I have an old friend in Blood Shark who knows some inside information. In front of the Ziwei Hall of the Seven Stars Heavenly Palace, this sword cultivator killed an early-stage Yuanian cultivator from the Alioth sword sect in front of 7 late-stage Yuanian cultivators. Moreover, this person also opened Ziwei Hall and took away some of its inheritance." Hearing this, the few people who were bragging together began to breathe rapidly. These large organizations had all obtained some of the Seven Stars Heavenly Palace's inheritance, which was why they were in their current situation. The inheritance in Ziwei Hall was definitely more valuable. If they could obtain the inheritance in Ziwei Hall, they could establish their own family or small sect. After a few thousand years of development, they could also become a large organization. This was too tempting for itinerant cultivators. A few other cultivators also began to brag. However, their bragging was quite ridiculous. Some said that Wang Daoyuan had obtained an Immortal's Dharma treasure in Ziwei Hall. As long as he could make it recognize him as its master, killing soul formation cultivators would be as easy as chopping vegetables. Some also said that he had obtained an Immortal pill. After eating it, his cultivation level skyrocketed and he had already ascended. Otherwise, how could the three large organizations not catch him after using such a powerful technique? No matter how ridiculous the rumors were, Wang Daoyuan did not care. What did a body cultivator like Wu Chuan have to do with a sword cultivator with the surname Zhou being wanted? As long as he did not actively expose his identity as a sword cultivator, it would be difficult for others to suspect him. After eating here, Wang Daoyuan did not stay any longer. Since he had a general understanding of the situation, there was not much point in staying here. He wanted to find the 5 elements essence. This was not something that could be obtained from any spirit vein. His understanding of the Sea of 7 Stars was still too shallow. It would be very difficult for him to find the 5 elements essence. The beast skin book that Uncle Zhong gave him also recorded the situation of some famous islands. Wang Daoyuan's target was Rare Treasure Island. Rare Treasure Island was located in the south of Qixing Sea Shuxian community. It was more than 150,000 kilometers away from Tianxian Island and was located at the border between the Seven Stars Alliance and the Blood Sharks territory. The island was not big. It was about 2,000 kilometers in radius and could only be considered a small island. However, this island happened to be on the main route from the Sea of 7 Stars to the Myriad Demon Island. There were also many coral reefs in the surrounding waters. The corals around Rare Treasure Island were all materials for refining tools. 4th or 5th grade corals were very common. Occasionally, 6th grade corals could be seen. The presence of coral reefs would definitely attract a large number of fish and other aquatic monsters. Therefore, there was an endless stream of cultivators who came to look for corals and hunt monsters. With enough people and the island being on the main route, it was naturally very prosperous. The Seven Stars Alliance and the Blood Shark had fought over Rare Treasure Island before. However, Rare Treasure Island was too valuable. Neither side could accept the other side's complete control. This place was also the point of balance between the two sides. No side could gain an absolute advantage. Therefore, the two sides came to an agreement that neither side would control Rare Treasure Island. They would only do business and collect taxes on the island. Thus, this place became an island of commerce. Almost all the territories on the island had been opened up into open markets. In the market of Rare Treasure Island, there was also the largest auction in the entire Qixing Sea Shuxian community. It was held once every 100 years. In this auction, one could see all kinds of rare treasures. In addition to the big auction, there were also many small auctions. There were also many precious spiritual items. Although the Five Elements essence was not considered rare in the Sea of Seven Stars, it was not easy to find. Even the fourth-grade Five Elements essence needed tens of thousands of years to form. Wang Daoyuan knew very little about the Sea of Seven Stars. Relying on himself to find the Five Elements essence was tantamount to finding a needle in a haystack. In the market of Rare Treasure Island, such spiritual items often appeared in the market of Rare Treasure Island. Instead of spending the effort to find them, it was better to spend some spirit stones to buy them. After eating and drinking at Kaiyang Restaurant, he took the flying boat and headed southeast. Monster Hunter Island was west of the Sea of Seven Stars, while Rare Treasure Island was south of the Sea of Seven Stars. The distance between the two was more than 1,000,000 miles. Wang Daoyuan did not want to appear too abnormal. Along the way, he stopped to rest for a few days when he encountered islands. At the same time, he bought some 4th-grade and 5th-grade refining materials and sold some 4th-grade magic tools to earn some high-grade spirit stones. Transactions in the Sea of Seven Stars often cost a few thousand high-grade spirit stones. When he came from Beiyuan, he did not bring many high-grade spirit stones. In the secret realm, he only obtained a few thousand high-grade spirit stones after killing Venerable Goldenlight. If he wanted to bid for the Five Elements essence, he would not have a high chance of winning without a few 100,000 high-grade spirit stones. Therefore, he exposed his identity as a blacksmith and earned some spirit stones by refining tools. He would not refine tools himself. There were 3 4th-grade blacksmiths in the space of the Spirit Pearl. Ordinary magic tools were naturally left to them. After half a year of trekking, he finally arrived near Rare Treasure Island. Looking from afar, an island that looked like a kidney was lying on the sea. With this appearance, it should be called Pig's Kidney Island, not Rare Treasure Island. The terrain of the island was flat and there was nothing special about the terrain. However, in the surrounding sea, there were huge coral reefs with a radius of more than 30,000 miles. These coral reefs were of different colors, reflecting the surrounding sea into a myriad of colors. Wang Daoyuan had seen the world, but he still could not help but look at it for a while. He landed on the west coast of Rare Treasure Island, kept the flying boat, and walked straight to the market. Chapter 754. The management of the market on Rare Treasures Island was also very lax. Other than the fact that fighting was not allowed, there were no other rules. The Seven Stars Alliance and Blood Shark sent out some early-stage Yuanian cultivators and peak-stage Golden Core cultivators to form a team of guards. If there were any random cultivators who attacked, they would be dealt with by the guards. The taxes collected from the shops by the 2 major forces were also handled by the guards. Therefore, on Rare Treasures Island, as long as one did not attack or offend the guards, everything was fine. The whole market was protected by a wall that was not very tall. The wall was densely engraved with tool patterns and formation patterns. The market was protected by a wall, which was also a characteristic of most high-value islands. Most of the islands in the Sea of Seven Stars had records of being attacked by demon beasts. The areas around the 7 big islands were still fine. The demon beasts in the sea were almost all dealt with. Islands like Rare Treasures Island had even more cases of being attacked by demon beasts. Wang Daoyuan came to the west gate of the market and revealed his aura as a Yuanying cultivator. Yuanying loose cultivators were not uncommon in a place like Rare Treasures Island, so there was no need for them to hide their cultivation. The two guards guarding the gate were both peak-stage golden core cultivators. They quickly cupped their hands and said, "Greetings, Senior. May I ask if you have a token?" Wang Daoyuan shook his head. "This is my first time here. I don't have a token." The peak-stage golden core cultivator took out a silver token. "May I ask for your name, Senior?" "Wu Chuan." The peak-stage golden core cultivator carved something on the token. After a few breaths, he handed the token to Wang Daoyuan. "This is Senior's identity token. As long as you drip your blood on it, you can enter and leave the market as you wish. If you lose the token, you can find us to replace it at any time." Wang Daoyuan took the token and dripped a drop of blood on it. The token flashed with a red light, then the light disappeared. The two guards cupped their hands and invited him in. Wang Daoyuan walked through the gate. There was a formation at the gate. When he walked in front of the formation, it automatically opened a hole and let him in. There were rows upon rows of shops in the city, but there were also many loose cultivators who set up street stalls. In addition to shops, there were also many residential buildings. There were also many ordinary people in some of the residences. Although the scale of the market here was very large, it was very similar to the market in Beiyuan. There were also brokers here. Not long after Wang Daoyuan entered the makeshift market, a foundation establishment cultivator came forward to strike a conversation with him. In the Qixing Sea Xiuxian community, those who had not reached the late stage of the Jindan realm were not allowed to travel in the open sea. Such foundation establishment cultivators were all born here. The foundation establishment cultivator bowed to Wang Daoyuan. "Senior, are you looking for a shop?" "Junior Wu Yan, although my cultivation base is low, I am very familiar with the market on Rare Treasures Island. No matter what Senior wants to buy, Junior will be able to find a suitable shop for you." Wang Daoyuan smiled and said, "What are the prices of the shops and houses in this market?" Wu Yan answered, "A store with a good location costs several thousand high-grade spirit stones. Even a store in a more remote area costs more than 1,000 high-grade spirit stones. The houses far away from the main road are relatively cheaper. A small house with a length of 10 feet and a width of 5 feet only costs about 100 high-grade spirit stones." The prices of the shops and houses here were really high. However, there were mid-grade 6th-level spirit veins on Rare Treasures Island. The effect of cultivating anywhere was much better than cultivating at the volcano on Heavenly Flame Island. Most of the 6th-level spirit veins were occupied by various forces. It was extremely difficult for a rogue cultivator to cultivate near a 6th-level spirit vein. As such, the price was acceptable. It was no wonder that so many cultivators set up street stalls. It was easy to buy a remote house here, but it was difficult to buy a shop. Wang Daoyuan only had a little more than 1,000 high-grade spirit stones on him. Buying a shop was a bit difficult. It was better to set up a street stall than a remote shop. He asked Wu Yan, "How many spirit stones does a house with a fire eye cost?" Wu Yan answered, "The price is relatively high. The cheapest one costs more than 500 spirit stones. Help me find a house with a fire eye. I can accept it for less than 1,000 spirit stones. As long as I'm satisfied, you'll be rewarded." Then, he took out a few mid-grade spirit stones and gave them to him. He didn't want the fire eye for alchemy or refining tools, but mainly for cultivation. With the spiritual fire and the fire eye, he could quickly obtain a large amount of spiritual power. Wu Yan took the spirit stones and thanked him profusely. "Thank you for your reward, Senior. The market on Rare Treasures Island is very big, so there are naturally many cultivators. There are also many shops and houses for sale. 2 days ago, a cultivator wanted to leave Rare Treasures Island and asked me to find a house for him. That person was an alchemist, and there was a fire eye in his house. The house is 20 feet long and 10 feet wide. The price is 600 high-grade spirit stones. What do you think? Take me there. If I'm satisfied, I'll buy it. Wu Yan took him to the south and came to a small house in the southwest corner of the market. At this time, an old cultivator at the peak of the Golden Core realm came to greet them. When he saw Wang Daoyuan, he bowed and saluted, "Greetings, Senior. This is this junior's small house. Please come in and take a look." Wang Daoyuan followed him into the small house. The gate of the small house faced the east and was surrounded by walls on 3 sides. There were 3 rooms on the west side. The south room was the earth fire room, the north room was the bedroom, and the middle room was the reception area. Apart from a small path connecting the gate to the house, the rest of the house was opened up as a spiritual field. After entering the earth fire room, the fire eye was only a foot in diameter. Earth fire was constantly gushing out from it. There was also a 4th-grade high-grade alchemy furnace on top of the fire eye. It seemed that medicinal pills were still being nourished in the furnace. Wang Daoyuan nodded with satisfaction. "I'm very satisfied with this house. I have no objection to the price of 600 high-grade spirit stones. I'm an alchemist, but I also want to learn alchemy. If you have an alchemy inheritance, I can buy it at a suitable price." Upon hearing this, the peak of the Golden Core realm cultivator's face lit up. He quickly said, "Since Senior is interested, this junior naturally won't refuse. It's just that my alchemy technique is based on many incomplete inheritances. It's only a 5th-grade low-grade alchemy inheritance, and it's also very crude. If Senior doesn't mind, this junior is naturally willing to sell it to you. You can decide the price." Wang Daoyuan just wanted to get an alchemy inheritance to understand the characteristics of the Sea of 7 Stars alchemy Dao. He didn't expect it to be a 5th-grade alchemy inheritance. He only had a 4th-grade alchemy inheritance, which was an unexpected gain. After pondering for a while, he said, "I'm willing to buy your alchemy technique with 100 high-grade spirit stones. What do you think?" The peak of the Golden Core realm cultivator repeatedly agreed. He took out a beast skin book, a token, and a square metal plate. The alchemy technique, array formation token, and the house deed are all here. Wang Daoyuan took it and checked it. There was no problem with the alchemy technique. The token could also control the array formation of this small house, but he didn't recognize the house deed. However, this house deed had the seal of the Rare Treasures Island's guards, so it shouldn't be fake. He took out 700 high-grade spirit stones and handed them to the peak of the Golden Core realm cultivator. He quickly took the spirit stones, took the pill furnace, and left with gratitude. Wang Daoyuan gave Wu Yan more than 10 medium-grade spirit stones and asked him to help find a channel to buy refining materials. Wu Yan naturally didn't dare to be negligent after getting a lot of benefits. He patted his chest and promised that he would find a shop that sold refining materials. After sending the 2 people away, Wang Daoyuan checked the array formation again, but he didn't find any clues. Thus, he studied the alchemy technique in this small courtyard. This alchemy technique was called the Outer Sea Pill Scripture. In addition to the alchemy technique, it also introduced the medicinal effects of some common spiritual herbs in the sea. The alchemy technique of Qixing Sea Xiaoxian community was indeed very different from that of Beiyuan. The alchemy technique of Beiyuan Xiaoxian community, even when refining gold formation pills, used demonic beast cores as the main ingredient, and the supplementary ingredients were also spiritual herbs. However, it was different in the Sea of 7 Stars. If they could use demonic beast cores, they would never use spiritual herbs. More than 80% of the raw materials used to refine a pill were demonic beast cores, demonic beast blood essence, demonic beast meat, and so on. The small amount of spiritual herbs were mostly produced in the sea. Wang Daoyuan could only recognize a few of them. Chapter 755. The alchemy techniques recorded in the Outer Sea Pill scripture were very different from Wang Daoyuan's original alchemy techniques. However, the contents of extracting essence, condensing pills, and pill veins were basically the same. These things were the same, so it was not difficult to learn them. He had crossed the sea from Beiyuan and killed many demon beasts along the way, so he had accumulated a lot of demon cores and demon beasts' bones. Coupled with a small amount of spirit herbs, he could refine a few types of pills. Although Dharma artifacts were expensive, the demand for them was much lower. As long as there were cultivators, the demand for pills was very high. Rare Treasures Island was surrounded by demon hunting grounds, so there were more casualties among cultivators. Healing pills would definitely sell for a good price. He chose a healing pill called the Beast Blood Heaven Returning Pill. The main ingredient was the blood essence of demon beasts. This was very common on Rare Treasures Island. He could get a few thousand kilograms of blood essence by killing a slightly larger demon beast. Healing pills were also easier to refine, and it took less time to refine pills. He could refine one cauldron in 10 days. Wu Yan also introduced him to a few itinerant cultivators who went out to search for refining materials and alchemy materials, so he did not have to worry about the raw materials. After refining pills for more than 2 months, he left his small courtyard and set up a stall near the nearest market square. Wang Daoyuan took a large piece of beast skin, found a gap in the stall, and spread it on the ground. He took out a few low-grade grade 4 Dharma artifacts and 5 bottles of Beast Blood Heaven Returning pills. Yuanying itinerant cultivators were not rare in this market square, but Yuanying itinerant cultivators who set up stalls were rarer. With a Yuanying cultivation base, he could get a few thousand high-grade spirit stones by casually making a few moves. To put it bluntly, setting up a stall depended on one's luck. If one was unlucky, they might not get anything. He was also a Yuanying cultivator. Normal golden core cultivators did not dare to buy from him because they did not dare to bargain. After setting up a stall for 2 days, he did not sell a single item. However, he had at least figured out the prices of pills and Dharma artifacts. On the 3rd day, an early-stage Yuanying cultivator came to Wang Daoyuan's stall. This person looked middle-aged and was wearing a long robe made of beast skin that was commonly seen among itinerant cultivators. Wang Daoyuan asked, "Daoyu, what do you want?" "Daoyu's stall only has grade 4 items, so I naturally have no use for them. However, fellow Daoist is a nascent soul cultivator. Isn't it a waste of your talent to set up a stall here? It's better to go out to sea to hunt demon beasts than here." Wang Daoyuan smiled and said, "I'm also new here and don't have any connections yet. If I go out to sea rashly, I might offend other cultivators. I lack spirit stones, so I only have some skills in alchemy and artifact forging." The nascent soul cultivator smiled and said, "That's a small matter. I'll take all the things in your stall. Usually, Yuanying, Yuanying, and Yuanying cultivators. I'm just a Yuanying cultivator, so I don't dare to easily provoke strong grade 5 demon beasts. If Daoyu can join us, with our strength and the cooperation of a few golden core juniors, killing low-grade grade 5 demon beasts will be as easy as chopping vegetables. I also have channels to sell resources. If everything goes well, each of us will be able to earn more than 10,000 high-grade spirit stones in one trip. If Daoyu still wants to do this business, you can buy a shop in a crowded place. It's much better than setting up a stall here." Wang Daoyuan stayed on Rare Treasures Island to earn some spirit stones to buy 5 elements essence. He also wanted to improve his skills in alchemy and tool refining. When he reached the Yuanying stage, grade 4 mid-grade alchemy and tool refining skills were no longer enough. Moreover, hunting demon beasts was also a business of dividing territory. Places where it was easy to hunt demon beasts would definitely be occupied by people. If he didn't have any connections and went out rashly, not only would he not be able to hunt demon beasts, he might even be besieged. Now that a demon beast hunting cultivator wanted him to join them, this connection came to him. If he went hunting with them, earning spirit stones naturally wouldn't be a problem. He also wasn't afraid that this person had any bad intentions. Relying on his physical strength and body cultivation techniques, he could easily kill early Yuanian cultivators. Even if he was ambushed by many people, at worst his identity would be exposed. It was just a matter of changing his name. There were many body cultivators in the Qixing Si Xiuxian community. How could he catch all of them, including the Seven Stars Alliance and Blood Shark? He nodded. Daoyu's words make sense. I'll go hunting with Daoyu. I'm Wu Chuan. Please take care of me, Daoyu. Li Chen took out a storage pouch. There are 3,000 high-grade spirit stones here. I'll take all of Daoyu's things. It just so happens that I have some golden core cultivators under me who can use these things. Wang Daoyuan took the storage pouch, tidied up the magic tools and pills, and handed them to Li Chen. Then, Li Chen brought him to an extremely spacious courtyard nearby. There were 7 peak-stage golden core cultivators in the courtyard. When they saw the two enter the courtyard, they bowed and said, "Greetings, head shopkeeper." "Greetings, senior." Li Chen introduced, "This is Wu Chuan, the helper I found. He'll be the second shopkeeper in the future. Everyone go and prepare. 3 days later, we'll go hunting at Blood Rock Beach." Wang Daoyuan had stayed here for a few months and had some understanding of the surrounding waters. Blood Rock Beach was more than 20,000 kilometers south of Rare Treasures Island. The name sounded scary, but it wasn't a particularly dangerous place. It was just that large patches of red blood coral grew there. Looking from above, the entire sea looked like it was dyed red with blood. The coral near Blood Rock Beach was more dense, and the water was very shallow. Large demon beasts didn't like to come here, but there were many small demon beasts. There was no lack of delicacies and spiritual items with extremely high medicinal value. The biggest danger at Blood Rock Beach wasn't the demon beasts, but other demon hunting cultivators. It was very common for them to snatch someone's harvest. As long as they could stand firm, their harvest would definitely be bountiful. 3 days later, everyone boarded a high-grade tier for flying ship and headed due south. 4 hours later, the flying boat arrived at Blood Rock Beach and slowly lowered its altitude. As far as the eye could see, everything was blood red. Everyone landed on a blood-red reef. Li Chen put away the flying boat and ordered, "Deng Hai, I'll leave the search for the spiritual item to you." A short but vigorous cultivator cupped his hands and said, "Don't worry, head shopkeeper." Then, his figure flashed and disappeared from the coral reef. His method naturally couldn't hide from Wang Daoyuan's divine sense. It was a rather brilliant concealment secret technique. It was still lacking compared to Wang Daoyuan's devil concealment art, but it was still quite impressive. Moreover, Deng Hai's speed was extremely fast. Ordinary demon beasts really couldn't stop him. He swam down through the coral crevices. The specialty of Blood Rock Beach was some 4th grade or 5th grade seafood. They were relatively weak, but their value was very high. These things were usually hidden in the depths of the coral reef. It really required some special methods to find them. An hour later, Deng Hai came up from below the coral reef with a joyful expression. "Head shopkeeper, there's a group of star-patterned sea cucumbers below. There are more than 35 star ones and 5 7-star ones." Star-patterned sea cucumbers were also a marvel of the sea. They lived in the deep sea, but their bodies contained star power. The more star power one had, the more star-patterned sea cucumbers would have. Star power was a good thing. It was extremely useful for the divine sense and the physical body. Even soul formation cultivators could absorb the power of the stars for cultivation. Li Qin said with a smile, "Brother Wu, we've hit the jackpot this time. 5-star star-patterned sea cucumbers are generally 4th grade, and one can sell for 1,000 high-grade spirit stones. 7-star ones are 5th grade, low grade, and one can sell for 3 to 5,000 high-grade spirit stones. As long as we can take all of these sea cucumbers, it won't be a problem for each of us to get 20,000 high-grade spirit stones. Although these sea cucumbers aren't good at fighting, there are still 5th grade ones. If I go down alone, I can at most catch 1 or 2 sea of 7 stars sea cucumbers. If we want to leave all of these sea cucumbers behind, I'll have to trouble Dao Yu to go down with me." The true dragon body forging technique was even more powerful underwater. In the water, apart from powerful demonic beasts such as dragons, Wang Daoyuan wasn't afraid of anyone in the same realm. He also agreed. "Since we're going out to sea together, we naturally have to do it together." Chapter 756. Li Chen was a water cultivator, so it was not a problem for him to enter the sea. Wang Daoyuan did not deliberately hide his spiritual power either. The Sea of 7 Stars was different from Beiyuan. Even foundation establishment cultivators in Beiyuan rarely had penta-spirit roots, but here in the Sea of 7 Stars, penta-spirit roots cultivators were not rare. Especially in the Yuanying realm, there were more penta-spirit roots cultivators than 3-spirit roots cultivators. Here, penta-spirit roots were no different from ordinary spirit roots. Both of them had water-type spells, so it was not a problem for them to enter the water. Li Chen turned into a ball of water and entered the sea. Wang Daoyuan had exposed the cloud mist escape in the 7 Stars secret realm, so he could not use it now. He had many escape techniques, including the true dragon flight technique and the flood dragon water escape that he had obtained from the Gu clan. He had only hidden one move, which was the weaker flood dragon water escape. He turned into a black flood dragon and entered the sea. Although he had crossed the ocean from Beiyuan to the Sea of 7 Stars, he had never gone deep into the sea. In the dim water, the crimson blood coral emitted a weak red light. All kinds of low-grade spirit fish swam through it. Wang Daoyuan really wanted to raise some corals and spirit fish. Yuanying often entered the spirit pearl space, so it was good for the eyes. Moreover, the crimson blood coral was an excellent refining material. Unfortunately, there was no seawater in the spirit pearl space, and the space was too small. It was only a little more than 100 acres. When the space was bigger in the future, he could dig a big hole at the edge and fill it with seawater to raise spirit fish. Both of them were Yuanying cultivators, and they already knew the location, so they were naturally very fast. In just a few minutes, they arrived at the star-patterned sea cucumber. The star-patterned sea cucumber was not small. It was as thick as an adult's calf and almost 2 feet long. There were also 7 round spots the size of copper coins on its body, emitting weak star power. These were the star runes of the sea cucumber. Each star rune contained a massive amount of star power. After eating this sea cucumber, one would be able to refine the power of the stars into one's body and integrate it into one's Yuanying. This was extremely beneficial to the growth of Yuanying. Looking at these sea cucumbers, Wang Daoyuan thought of the famous dishes from his previous life, such as scallion braised sea cucumber, Buddha jumps over the wall, and so on. He couldn't help but drool. In the future, when the space in the spiritual pearl was larger, he would dig a hole to fill it with seawater and raise some star-patterned sea cucumbers. The two of them dispelled their escape techniques, suppressed their spirit energy fluctuations as much as possible, and quietly approached the sea cucumber. These guys didn't know that a disaster was coming. They were lying on the reefs at the bottom of the sea, eating the seaweed unhurriedly. Li Chen said telepathically, "Brother Wu, catch the Sea of 7 Stars ginseng first. 5 stars are slow, so they can't escape. Wang Daoyuan immediately agreed, and the two of them cast spells at the same time, attacking the 5 ginseng of the Sea of 7 Stars. Li Chen condensed a water prison, trapping 2 ginseng of the Sea of 7 Stars. As for the remaining 3, Wang Daoyuan couldn't let them go. He cast the water dragon spell and condensed 3 water dragons, entangling the 3 ginseng of the Sea of 7 Stars. If they were ordinary demon beasts, it would be easy to break the water dragons. However, these sea cucumbers were too weak. They could only emit spirit energy fluctuations, trying to break free from the water dragons. Unfortunately, they were too weak to break free. Li Chen took out a jade bottle and put the 5 ginseng inside. This jade bottle is a spatial artifact used to store precious seafood. Brother, I think you don't have such an artifact, so you can leave it with me for now. You know the price of this thing. After we sell it, you won't be short of a single spirit stone. Wang Daoyuan didn't object, and the two of them continued to catch other sea cucumbers. The star patterns on these 5 stars sea cucumbers were much smaller, only 4th grade high quality. Sea cucumbers weren't known for their speed, so they naturally couldn't escape from the two of them. The two of them cast spells and caught 15 sea cucumbers each. There was also a 5 stars sea cucumber that drilled into a dense coral. Wang Daoyuan was short of spirit stones. This sea cucumber was worth 1,000 high-quality spirit stones, so he could get more than 400. Naturally, he couldn't let it run away. He clenched his fist and condensed the phantom of a dragon claw. With a punch, the corals within a range of 10 feet were shattered. However, there was a 9-foot-tall coral tree that didn't even have a crack on it. This coral wasn't like other refining materials. It didn't have obvious spirit energy fluctuations. Except for cultivators who specialized in collecting corals, it was very difficult for ordinary people to accurately judge the quality of corals. Unless they carried out some destructive experiments, they could roughly judge the quality of the corals by their strength. To be able to withstand Wang Daoyuan's punch, it had to be at least 5th grade. Li Chen exclaimed, "Brother, you're very capable and lucky. This coral can withstand your punch without being damaged. It's definitely at the 5th grade. It's more than 9 feet tall and can be refined into a long weapon. Even if it's low-quality 5th grade, it's worth 7,000 to 8,000 high-quality spirit stones. If it's mid-quality 5th grade, it's worth at least 10,000. This thing was discovered by you alone, so I won't interfere." This Li Chen was quite righteous. Wang Daoyuan walked over, shattered the rocks around the coral, and pulled out the entire coral tree. After putting it away, he smiled and said, "Brotherly, you're too serious. If I didn't come with Brotherly, I wouldn't have found this thing. When we split the spirit stones, I'll get 1,000 less." The 5-star sea cucumber couldn't escape and was put into a jade bottle by Li Chen. The two of them had caused quite a commotion. If they continued to stay here, it was inevitable that they would attract more fierce demon beasts. No matter how good a human's swimming ability was, they couldn't compare to demon beasts that lived in the deep sea. There was no need to stay here and cause trouble. The two of them quickly left and went to the coral reef from before. When they arrived at the reef, they found that Deng Hai and the others were gone. Li Chen's expression was strange. Obviously, this matter was beyond his expectations. He was about to send a message to those people when he heard an arrogant voice, "Li Chen, we didn't interfere with each other's business. Why did you come to our territory and steal our business? Could it be that after finding a helper, you've become so bold that you dare to go against us brothers? Hand over the star-patterned sea cucumber and I'll let your dogs go. Otherwise, they'll die, and you too won't be able to escape." Li Chen snorted coldly, "Twin blood dragons, when did the Bloodstone Beach become your territory? Even the Seven Stars Alliance and the Blood Shark Alliance didn't occupy the entire Rare Treasure Island. What do you think you are? Be obedient and let my men go. Otherwise, you two brothers will suffer today. At this time, two cultivators emerged from the water. They were also in the early Yuanying realm. Their hair and beards were blood red, and their fingers were long and slender. Their nails didn't look like human hands, but more like the claws of eagles. Wang Daoyuan had cultivated the true dragon physical tempering art for many years and was very sensitive to dragon qi. The two of them emitted a faint dragon qi, so they should be half-demon beasts with dragon blood. In this way, the two brothers shouldn't be weak. At least among cultivators in the same realm, their strength should be above average. One of them said, "Li Chen, you have some skills, but no matter how strong you are, can you deal with Master Huang? On Blood Rock Beach, we brothers don't have the final say, but Master Huang has the final say." Li Chen transmitted his voice to Wang Daoyuan. The Master Huang he mentioned is a reputable figure on Rare Treasure Island. The Huang family is a power outside of the Seven Stars Alliance and the Blood Shark. Now, the Huang family has a peak Yuanying realm cultivator, Master Huang. They also have a late Yuanying realm cultivator, a mid Yuanying realm cultivator, and two early Yuanying realm cultivators. The Huang family's strength can be counted as the third strongest on Rare Treasure Island. They have always been very respectful to the two major powers, so no one dared to touch them. The Blood Sea Flood dragons are somewhat related to the Huang family. Their father is a 5th-grade Blood Sea Flood dragon raised by Master Huang. Dragons are lascivious, and this Blood Sea Flood dragon touched one of Master Huang's concubines and gave birth to these two bastards. Master Huang and his pet became brothers-in-law, so he felt ashamed. So, he chased these two bastards out of the Huang family and locked up the Blood Sea Flood dragon. These two bastards often use the Huang family's name as a banner, but the Huang family doesn't really care about them. If they kill them, Master Huang won't look good either. When you fight later, don't go overboard. If you don't kill or cripple them, the Huang family won't pursue the matter. Chapter 757. Hearing this, Wang Daoyuan's interest was piqued. A force with a soul formation cultivator was considered a major force. A force with a peak Yuanying cultivator was considered a second-rate force. Not to mention that he could dominate the Sea of Seven Stars, he was still the master of a region. How could such a person have such a scandal? He asked telepathically, "Brotherly, this Master Huang is a respectable person." Normally, cultivators in the late and peak of the Yuanying realm would become perfected cultivators. Since he's called Master Huang, he must be extraordinary. Even if he's an ordinary cultivator, he would kill the blood dragon and kill the bastard. Why did Master Huang swallow his anger because of this? Li Chen smiled and said, "Master Huang is not an honorific title. His original title was Perfected Lord Blood Dragon. After this incident, who would dare to call him that? He was originally a reputable figure on Rare Treasures Island, so everyone addressed him respectfully as Master Huang. As for swallowing his anger, it's mainly because this blood dragon is not simple. Its dragon blood is extremely pure and has reached the level of a semi-divine beast. Moreover, its cultivation has reached the peak of the 5th grade. With such a bloodline, it's not a problem for it to break through to the soul formation realm. It's not worth it to fall out with the blood dragon because of a concubine. Therefore, we can't kill these two bastards. Otherwise, we'll be in big trouble if we anger that blood dragon." The blood dragon duo saw that the two of them were telepathically communicating and Wang Daoyuan's expression was strange. They immediately guessed what they were talking about. The two half-demons were enraged and attacked the two of them. The half-demons with dragon blood were definitely not weak, and their strength could not be underestimated. Li Chen was not a body cultivator, so he did not dare to fight them head-on. Wang Daoyuan did not want to fight the two of them alone. The two of them used escape techniques to distance themselves. The two of them separated, and the two half-demons chased after Wang Daoyuan and Li Chen respectively. The two brothers were twins and looked exactly the same. Wang Daoyuan could not tell who was attacking him. He took out a blood-red spear and pointed it at Wang Daoyuan's throat. Wang Daoyuan's hands turned into dragon claws and grabbed the spearhead. The long spear that had been thrusting towards him abruptly came to a halt. The half-demon tried his best to pull his spear back, but he couldn't move Wang Daoyuan at all. Wang Daoyuan also knew what was going on after this fight. The half-demon in front of him was much weaker than him in terms of physical strength alone. What a waste of his flood dragon bloodline. Half-goblin loosened his gun and condensed a mass of blood-colored spiritual power in his hand. Wang Daoyuan did not give him a chance to make a move. He turned his spear and swept it towards him. The spearhead brought along an ear-piercing sound as it smashed towards his head. The half-demon had no choice but to use an escape technique, turning into a blood-colored mist to dodge the attack. Unfortunately, his escape technique was still a little too slow. Wang Daoyuan raised his spear and chased after him. The half-demon had nowhere to run, so he could only use his half-formed killing move. The blood-colored spiritual power turned into a giant dragon head that bit towards the spearhead. Wang Daoyuan swung his spear to dodge the dragon's mouth, changing from a stab to a sweep. The spearhead smashed into the dragon's head, turning it into a blood mist. Without waiting for the half-demon to recover, Wang Daoyuan charged forward. The spear swept and hit the half-demon's back. The half-demon was sent flying and spat out a mouthful of blood when he landed. Before he could react, the spearhead was already at his throat. After dealing with one half-demon cleanly, Wang Daoyuan shouted at the other half-demon, "Do you want to continue fighting?" Li Chen and the other half-demon were in a stalemate. Although he had the upper hand, his physical body was not as strong as the half-demons, so it was hard to determine the victor in a short period of time. Seeing his brother being suppressed, the other half-demon stopped attacking. He pulled away from Li Chen and scolded, "You really don't put old Master Huang in your eyes. Let go of my brother and compensate us with 20,000 high-grade spirit stones, and we will let bygones be bygones." Li Chen smiled, "What do you think old Master Huang can do if we kill the two of you and escape to Myriad Demon Islands?" Hearing this, the head of the two flood dragons stopped being stubborn. "Let go of my brother and I will give you your subordinates." Li Chen transmitted his voice to Wang Daoyuan for his opinion. These two half-demons were involved in the Huang family's matters, so outsiders shouldn't interfere. There was no use in killing a half-demon and it would cause a lot of trouble, so he naturally agreed to let them go. After getting his agreement, Li Chen replied, "If you had done this earlier, there wouldn't have been so much trouble. Bring my men over." The head of the two flood dragons took out a spirit beast bag from his waist and threw it to Li Chen. Li Chen took the spirit beast pouch and released the 7 half-dead peak stage golden core cultivators. They should have been injured by the blood sea flood dragons, but their lives weren't in danger. They were just stuffed in the spirit beast bag and weren't in good condition. Wang Daoyuan retreated to Li Chen's side and threw back the spear in his hand. The spear was very ordinary, and Wang Daoyuan didn't want to get entangled with the blood sea flood dragons over this trivial matter. Li Chen took out the flying boat and everyone boarded it and left Bloodstone Beach. Returning to the small courtyard in Rare Treasure Island, Li Chen heaved a sigh of relief. "I really didn't expect that I would be so lucky to find such a capable helper. Brother Wu, it's all thanks to you that you defeated the second brother of the two flood dragons. Otherwise, I'm afraid all of my brothers will have to give up. I want to sell these star-patterned sea cucumbers to the Kai Yang restaurant, please wait for a moment." An hour later, Li Chen returned to the courtyard with a face full of joy. "Brother Wu, we really made a big profit this time." Lord Huang is about to celebrate his 1600th birthday and will hold a banquet at the Kai Yang restaurant. He just happened to be short of a few dishes, and these star-patterned sea cucumbers can be said to be timely rain. The purchase price was also much higher than usual. One sea of 7 stars sea cucumber was 6,000 high-grade spirit stones, and one 5-star sea cucumber was 1,500 high-grade spirit stones. In total, we sold them for more than 84,000 high-grade spirit stones. Brother, you contributed a lot to deal with the Blood Sea Flood dragons this time. You take 50,000 spirit stones, I take 30,000, and the rest are distributed to the juniors. This distribution plan was quite generous. Among the 7 golden core cultivators, except for Deng Hai who contributed to finding the sea cucumbers, the other 6 didn't take action and needed to be rescued. Li Chen also gave them a few hundred spirit stones as a consolation. Wang Daoyuan had almost used up all his spirit stones and could only rely on setting up a stall to survive. In the blink of an eye, he had more than 50,000 high-grade spirit stones, which was a huge sum of money. I've made a lot of money with this distribution. I'm a little short on money, so I won't be polite with brotherly. I want to buy some spirit items, and I also want to sell the 5th-grade scarlet blood coral. However, I'm not familiar with this place, so I hope brotherly can recommend me a channel. Li Chen thought for a moment and said, Brother Wu, forgive me for being blunt, but I don't recommend selling your coral tree. 5th-grade corals are not rare, but there aren't many that are as complete as this. A 9 feet tall coral tree can be refined into a halberd or spear. If you can sell it elsewhere, 30,000 high-grade spirit stones won't be a problem. However, in a place like Rare Treasure Island where corals are produced, it's not worth much. It can only be sold for about 10,000 high-grade spirit stones. Wang Daoyuan nodded. I'm lacking a handy heavy-duty magic tool. This thing can be refined into a halberd. In that case, let's go to the Fekta Palace's tool refining shop. As the #1 tool refining sect in the Sea of 7 Stars, their tool refining techniques are extremely brilliant. Wang Daoyuan naturally had no objections. The two of them went to the Fekta tool refining shop in the center of the market. Li Chen was already familiar with the place, so he chatted and laughed with the shopkeeper. After chatting for a while, Li Chen said, This brother of mine found a 9 feet tall 5th-grade coral tree. He wants to ask the tool refining master of the Fekta Palace to help him refine a magic tool. Shopkeeper, please recommend him. At that moment, a mid-stage Yuanying cultivator walked in from outside and asked, Who has a 9 feet tall coral tree? I was just worried that I couldn't find any rare treasures to celebrate my father's birthday. Quickly take it out and let me see. As long as it's good, I won't forget to give you spirit stones. The shopkeeper quickly greeted him, so it's young Master Huang. It's Li Daoyu. I haven't seen any coral trees yet. Li Chen also transmitted his voice to Wang Daoyuan, this is Master Huang's eldest son. He's not someone to be trifled with. Brother Wu, money is just a worldly possession. Don't fight him head-on. Chapter 758. The Huang family was also a second-rate power. Master Huang was only 1,600 years old. There were still 400 years before the 2,000-year lifespan of the Yuanying. It wasn't impossible for him to break through to the soul formation realm in such a long time. Wang Daoyuan naturally didn't dare to go against the Huang family. The main reason he wanted to forge a long weapon was that a heavy sword wasn't very convenient for him. When he stole the spears of the Blood Sea Flood dragons, he felt that a long weapon was more suitable for body refinement cultivators. Since he had no choice but to sell the coral, he had to find a way to get a good price. Wang Daoyuan smiled. I'm also a body refiner. This coral tree took a punch from me without any damage. It's definitely not an ordinary object. Isn't it a bit inappropriate to take it out here? Also, I want to ask the tool refiners of the Tianji Palace to appraise this coral tree's grade. Since young Master Huang wants to give this coral tree as a birthday gift, it's better to know its grade. Young Master Huang's interest was piqued. If it could take a punch from an early Yuanying body refiner without any damage, it had to be at least a mid-grade 5th rank treasure. If it was in good condition, it could be considered a rare treasure. The shopkeeper was also a shrewd person. He immediately led the three upstairs to a spacious room. There was a mid-stage Yuanying cultivator with white hair and beard in the room. His body emitted a fiery aura. He should be a tool refiner. The shopkeeper cupped his hands and said, "Elder Shen, a little friend obtained a 9 feet tall coral tree. He wants you to appraise its grade and estimate its price." Elder Shen's interest was piqued. A 9 feet tall coral tree is rare. Take it out and let me have a look. Wang Daoyuan took out the coral tree and placed it in front of Elder Shen. Elder Shen glanced at it. It's 9 feet and 5 inches tall. The trunk has a diameter of 3 inches and 2 inches. The branches are intact. In my opinion, it should be a mid-grade 5th rank treasure. It's a pity. If it could grow for another 100 or 200 years, it would be a high-grade 5th rank treasure. At that time, it could be sold for at least 50,000 high-grade spirit stones. Right now, it's only worth 30,000 or so. However, this coral tree just came out of the water not long ago. If we can find a suitable place to raise it for a few hundred years, it has a chance to grow into an upper-grade 5th rank. Hearing this, young Master Huang was overjoyed. "Little friend, how about I buy your coral for 30,000 high-grade spiritual stones?" Elder Shen said that it was worth more than 30,000, but he only offered 30,000. This was a bit unkind. Wang Daoyuan couldn't refuse. He still wanted to stay on the Rare Treasures Island for a while and earn some spirit stones to bid for the 5 elements essence. There was no need to cut off his own path for a few thousand high-grade spirit stones. It wasn't a big deal to suffer a little loss. Anyway, this coral was just a coincidence. He nodded. "Let's do it according to young Master Huang's price." After the transaction was settled, young Master Huang left the shop with the coral tree. Wang Daoyuan smiled and said, "Originally, I wanted to ask the master artificer of the Tianji Palace to help me refine a magic weapon. Who would have thought that young Master Huang would take a liking to the materials? Please forgive me, shopkeeper and Elder Shen." The shopkeeper smiled and said, "Dao Yu is too serious. This is also our fault. Young Master Huang has a high status. We don't want to have a falling out with the Huang family. Please forgive us, Dao Yu. Dao Yu, please take a look inside the shop. If you want any spiritual items, we will give you a 20% discount." The shopkeeper knew how to conduct himself. This way, he didn't offend either side. Wang Daoyuan naturally wouldn't let go of this opportunity. He originally wanted to buy a heavy magic weapon. As a sword cultivator, with a heavy sword in hand, he would always want to use sword techniques. Magic weapons like spears and halberds were more suitable for displaying the strength of the body. "I want to buy a 5th grade low-grade spear or halberd. Please lead the way, shopkeeper." The shopkeeper replied, "Our Tianji Palace's artificer skills are second in the Sea of 7 stars. No one dares to claim to be first. We have all kinds of heavy magic weapons. We definitely won't disappoint Dao Yu." Then, he led Wang Daoyuan and Li Chen to the 3rd floor. There were a few spacious rooms here. The shopkeeper led the two of them into one of the rooms. There were a few weapon racks in this room. On each rack, there were a dozen or so long-handled magic weapons. Long-handled axes, sabers, hammers, and other magic weapons were all available. All the heavy magic weapons in this shop are here. Dao Yu, feel free to choose whichever one you like. Although magic weapons like hammers and axes could also display the strength of the body, they were too cumbersome. Their attack power was very strong, but they lacked flexibility. No matter how strong they were useless if they couldn't hit their target. All of his methods pursued speed to ensure that he could hit his opponent. The 5 elements Devil Suppression seal wasn't fast, but it could use its suppressive force to restrict the opponent's speed. Therefore, when he chose magic weapons, he still wanted to ensure that the speed and flexibility were not lacking. He pursued strength. He took a fancy to a double-handled halberd. This halberd was as black as ink and was decorated with dragon patterns. He took the halberd down from the weapon rack and weighed it in his hand. The weight was very suitable for him. The halberd's 2 blades had obvious dragon chi. It should have been refined from the horn of a dragon. Seeing that he had taken a fancy to this halberd, the shopkeeper smiled. This halberd is called the Black Dragon Halberd. It's a non-elemental magic weapon refined from the dragon bone of an inky jade flood dragon. 300 years ago, a Yuanian cultivator of my Fekta Palace was traveling the myriad demon islands. He encountered a level 5 lower divine beast, the inky jade flood dragon. He killed it and used its dragon bone, dragon horn, and a few non-elemental metals to refine this halberd. The shaft also contains the spine of the inky jade flood dragon. The blade of the halberd is refined from dragon horn. This black dragon halberd can be considered a first-rate magic weapon among level 5 lower divine weapons. If Dao Yu is willing to take the time to nurture it, it's not impossible for it to reach level 5 middle divine weapon. Wang Daoyuan's body refinement technique came from the true dragon physical tempering technique. This black dragon halberd used a flood dragon as a refining material, which was quite compatible with the true dragon physical tempering technique. The black dragon halberd was also a non-elemental magic weapon, which was more suitable for cultivators with 5 spirit veins. He also wanted to buy this magic weapon, so he asked, "How much is this magic weapon?" 20,000 high-grade spirit stones. I promised a 20% discount, so it'll be 16,000 high-grade spirit stones. This was a fair price. The materials of a dragon were much more expensive than ordinary refining materials. The 2 dragon horns and the spine of a level 5 lower divine beast were worth at least 10,000 high-grade spirit stones. Adding the additional materials and the cost of a level 5 tool refiner, it would cost at least 14,000 high-grade spirit stones. 16,000 high-grade spirit stones was a reasonable price. Wang Daoyuan didn't bargain. He directly took out 16,000 high-grade spirit stones and handed them to the shopkeeper. He counted them. Wu Daoyu is indeed straightforward. Our shop has many auxiliary magic weapons. Daoyu can take a look. Wang Daoyuan put the black dragon halberd into his universe ring and followed the shopkeeper to look at other magic weapons. In the shop where auxiliary magic weapons were stored, he found a magic weapon similar to the one Li Qin used to store the star-patterned sea cucumber. After asking, he learned that this thing was similar to a spirit beast bag and could also store living things. However, it was much more advanced and could only be refined by cultivators who had mastered the law of space. This kind of magic weapon had a larger space and could allow demonic beasts and other creatures to live normally inside. It was much stronger than a spirit beast bag. Even humans could live for a long time inside. But in the end, it was still a high-level space treasure, which was on the same level as a universe ring. There were no spirit veins inside, so spirit beasts and spiritual plants couldn't grow and reproduce. It also needed to be constantly replenished with spiritual power and vitality to maintain the environment inside. It was still far from a real small secret realm. Wang Daoyuan spent 2,000 high-grade spirit stones to buy a ring. In the future, he could store living things in the space of the spiritual pearl without anyone knowing. The magic weapon he bought was called the Life Ring. It had an internal space of 300 square feet. It wasn't completely dark inside, but similar to a secret realm. It was as bright as a rainy day outside. This ring could be placed in the space of the spiritual pearl and filled with seawater to cultivate corals and sea cucumbers. There was no lack of spiritual power and vitality in the spiritual pearl. Setting up a spirit gathering array in the spiritual pearl and placing the ring in the array, there would be a steady flow of spiritual power. It was a bit like the fish cages in his previous life. Chapter 759. Li Chen did not buy any magic tools. The two of them walked around the Tianji Palace for a while before leaving and returning to their own courtyards. This time, they had earned a total of 80,000 high-grade spirit stones. After buying 2 magic tools, they still had more than 60,000 left. The speed of earning spirit stones was faster than cultivators who snatched treasures. However, this was also because they were lucky to have encountered the star-patterned sea cucumber and the coral tree. Normally, they would not have such a good harvest. The risk of going out to sea was not small. Most cultivators only went out once in a while. If they had a harvest, they would exchange it all for cultivation resources and improve their strength as soon as possible. When there were not many resources left, they would go out to sea again. The main purpose of cultivators was to cultivate. This was normal. Li Chen was the same. This time, he had also earned 30,000 high-grade spirit stones, which was enough for him to cultivate for a long time. In addition, the 7 golden core cultivators who played a supporting role were all seriously injured and needed to recuperate for a while. For the time being, he did not plan to go out to sea again. Wang Daoyuan was also happy to be idle. He cultivated step by step in his small courtyard and improved his alchemy and equipment refining skills. When he was free, he would go to the restaurant to see if there was any news of the 5 elements essence. After a year, Wang Daoyuan really did find some information. There were many big shops on Rare Treasure Island. The larger chambers of commerce would have a small auction house. As a result, there were many kinds of auctions. There were auctions once in 100 years, once in a few decades, once in a few years, and even once every year. Wang Daoyuan had also participated in the annual auction a few times. Unfortunately, the level of this auction was too low. There were no precious auction items. Most of them were very ordinary 4th or 5th grade magic tools and equipment refining materials. Wang Daoyuan did need some equipment refining materials to practice, but with Wu Yan's introduction, there were often rogue cultivators selling 4th or 5th grade equipment refining materials. The price of ordinary equipment refining materials in the auction house was too high. However, there was news of the 5 elements essence in the upcoming auction. The 5 elements essence was not very precious here, but the big and small forces would not sell it. A small piece of 5 elements essence was enough to upgrade the spirit vein of the corresponding attribute. To any force, it was extremely valuable. Furthermore, it was often used to refine natal dharma artifacts. Therefore, only rogue cultivators would sell these things. When they were traveling, if they happened to come across the 5 elements essence by chance, it would be useless to them if they didn't have a fixed residence. They would sell them at auctions to earn more resources. This auction house was called the Scarlet Flame Auction House, and the owner was the Scarlet Flame sect. This sect was also a member of the 7 Stars Alliance. Although they didn't have any soul formation cultivators, they still had 3 Yuanying peak stage cultivators. They weren't weak at all. The Crimson Flame Auction House's scale wasn't very large, but it often had good items. He also checked the auction records of the 5 elements essence. The level 4 5 elements essence was not worth much, and the average transaction price was only a few hundred high-grade spirit stones. Rank 5 5 elements essence, the price was especially high. 5th-level low-grade ones cost several thousand, and 5th-level mid-grade ones cost more than 10,000. Moreover, the bidding pressure was not small. Artificers and cultivators from small forces would all participate in the competition. It wasn't impossible for the price to be raised too high. Wang Daoyuan didn't expect to get a high-grade 5 elements essence, as long as he could get it. Even if it was a level 4 5 elements essence, if placed in the spirit vein in the spiritual pearl space for a few thousand years, it would only grow to 5th level mid-grade. On the day of the auction, Wang Daoyuan went straight to the Crimson Flame auction house. He didn't disguise himself. If he disguised himself too well, people might associate him with the sword cultivator surnamed Zhou. If he didn't disguise himself well and people saw through him, it would seem that he had a guilty conscience. He might as well go there openly. The 5 elements essence wasn't something important, and no one would chase after a Yuanian cultivator for it. The Crimson Flame auction house was extremely imposing. The entire auction house was built with level 4 artificing materials. At the door were 2 guards at the peak stage golden core stage. Wang Daoyuan revealed the aura of a Yuanian cultivator. The 2 hurriedly cupped their hands and said, "Greetings, Senior. Please enter." When Wang Daoyuan walked through the door, a young and beautiful foundation-building female cultivator walked over. He bowed and said, "Please follow me, Senior." This female cultivator was also pitiful. Her clothes were very simple and crude. With this bow, most of what should be revealed and what should not be revealed was revealed. Wang Daoyuan was a dignified gentleman. Of course, he wouldn't look around. He only took a few glances and followed the female cultivator to the 2nd floor. There were dozens of private rooms here. In the middle was a patio, and right below the patio was the auction stage. Around the auction stage on the 1st floor were some scattered seats. These scattered seats were reserved for golden core loose cultivators. After all, doing business mainly relied on cheating loose cultivators to earn spirit stones. This private room was relatively spacious. There was a long chair and a table. On the table, there was a teapot, teacups, and 2 plates of spirit fruits. The female cultivator didn't leave. Instead, she made tea on the side. Her tea skills were quite good. After making the tea, Wang Daoyuan said, "You can leave." The female cultivator looked a bit disappointed and left. To put it bluntly, these female cultivators were gifts for the Yuanian cultivators. If they were chosen, they could become the Yuanian cultivators' concubines. Wang Daoyuan had disguised himself as an ordinary-looking young man. Young Yuanian cultivators were naturally more popular. To these female cultivators, being chosen by such Yuanian cultivators was better than staying here. After a quarter of an hour, a dozen or so Yuanian cultivators arrived on the 2nd floor. Among them was a familiar face. It was young Master Huang. Wang Daoyuan felt it was a bit strange. After all, the Huang family could be considered a local tyrant. If they wanted something, they could have just called. Was there a need to personally bid? There were also more than 100 loose cultivators on the 1st floor. A middle-stage Yuanian cultivator with white hair and a beard walked to the front of the auction stage. After a few opening remarks, he officially announced the start of the auction. Soon after, a similarly scantily clad female cultivator walked up with a tray. There were 2 pill bottles on the tray. The female cultivator placed the tray on the auction stage and bowed before leaving, revealing quite a bit of her body. A few young golden core loose cultivators stared in the direction of the female cultivator for a long time. The auctioneer smiled and said, "These are 2 bottles of nascent cultivating pills. There are 20 pills in total. The starting price is 400 high-grade spirit stones." Although the nascent cultivating pills were useful, there was no need to buy them here. Wang Daoyuan didn't make a move. In the end, the nascent cultivating pills were sold for 600 high-grade spirit stones. Afterward, there were some 5th-grade pills for healing and various refining materials. None of the Yuanian cultivators on the 2nd floor bid. After more than 10 items to warm up the atmosphere, the main course began. A Violet Palace Realm female cultivator walked up with a jade box in her hand. The auctioneer took the box and opened it to reveal a black crystal the size of an adult's forearm. This is a piece of 5th-grade mid-grade Gui water essence. I'm sure everyone knows the value of this item. It's often used to refine water attribute natal magic artifacts. It's also an excellent item for breaking the core and forming the nascent soul. If some clans or sects have low-grade water attribute spirit veins, they only need to infuse a small piece of Gui water essence into it to allow it to grow to the 5th grade. Furthermore, the more Gui water essence is infused, the faster it will grow. The starting price is 7,000 high-grade spirit stones. Each increment must be no less than 100 high-grade spirit stones. The Golden Core loose cultivators on the 1st floor weren't interested, but the Yuanian cultivators on the 2nd floor were. As soon as the auctioneer finished speaking, a voice from a private room shouted, 8,000. Before the word 1,000 could be said, someone else called out, 9,000. This was Wang Daoyuan's goal, so he naturally wouldn't give up. 10,000. At this moment, a familiar voice called out, 12,000. This voice belonged to young Master Huang. Judging from his bid, he seemed determined to win. You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.